Wait, where's the runner show? Hi, everybody. Welcome to Plat Chat Valorant, episode 24. Yep. I got myself a little mini-made orange juice. Yep. My torso. I feel like Danny DeVito right now in terms of my torso.
What? What do you mean?
I feel like
What is that? What are you getting at?
I feel scrunched up and like, oh, I'm the trash man, you know? Like, I feel like Danny
So you're
DeVito
saying
almost.
you feel short? You feel
Yeah,
short?
I feel like
Okay.
scrunched. Not
Is
short,
that what you think being
scrunched.
short's like? Is that you're just scrunched up physically?
I mean, yeah. I'm struggling to see that. More so, what I'm seeing is you're on your way to elementary school, right? You and your little Minute Maid carton.
I like how you emphasized elementary.
Yeah.
Every syllable.
Yeah. Listen to that sloshing around.
There you go. Some wacky slush right there. Episode 24 of Plat Chat Valorant. There's been not much news, but we're going to make news out of it. Don't you worry. We're going to make news. Bless you, Kurt.
Thank you.
He didn't
That's
sneeze.
the first
He's
segment.
just
That's the first segment here. Kurt sneezes. Infection in the Plat Chat house.
Well, it's actually a bit of a miracle that none of us really got really sick of it in the first week of the Overwatch League, when we were living with literally half the Overwatch League talent at one point under this one roof.
people did get very ill at some point early on in the year.
Right at the start of the year.
Jake 100% had the coronavirus.
ZB swore to me that he thought half the casters and the talent were infected with COVID at one point, but it just never. But essentially, they no one really was like, we're fine. So, but also who knows, right?
Again, I mean, that was like before it was even even known that it was a thing. It's just pure paranoia.
Yeah, this is just speculation.
Theory.
Jake was incredibly sick, but he also, every time I saw him in the kitchen, he'd be like, "Yeah, I don't believe in modern medicine." And just wouldn't take painkillers.
What? Second segment.
He didn't. Those weren't his exact words, but he was like, yeah, I believe. He was saying he believes in the body's ability to recover naturally, so he just didn't take really much for it. So he was just sick for like a week.
Yeah. This is a good
Does
segue
Jake
into
have a
our
bunch of essential
first
oils?
segment on the validity of modern medicine.
Yeah. Our first segment is though some leaks. Some leaks going around.
Here we go.
A new duelist agent called Rue. I don't really know how you pronounce this name that they've given him.
Well, I don't think it's their actual name, because it was on it was like leaked on a slide along with like PHX as an abbreviation of Phoenix. And I think it was like RYN as an abbreviation for Rainer and stuff as well.
Okay,
the screenshot.
That is
so.
That's a really telling screenshot.
Yeah, that tells us a
Talk about
lot.
this for hours.
I thought it was a cyberpunk meme. I thought it was a cyberpunk meme the first time I saw it.
Yeah, it looks like a bad render of the party hat from RuneScape. It looks like you just popped an unfinished party cap on a
Have
goblin.
you guys ever seen the live action Grinch film?
Yeah, I have.
2006.
Yes.
It looks like a character out of that with the way his hair is, like it's sticking out.
I could see that. I could see that. He also has
you
like
guys-
that elfish, like what were they called?
Can you
The
pull up
Who's?
like a clip from that film?
There
I think
Do you
it's gonna
guys
be-
remember? Yeah, the Who's, the Who's years.
Yeah, the Who's in
Yeah.
the live action
The
Grinch
Who's
film. I think
Who.
there's a lot of people watching who probably have never seen that film. It came out like 2006, I think.
Wait, you think there's a lot of
Some of
people
you
who've
may
never
not have
seen
been-
The Grinch?
Most
Yeah,
of
we
our
got a young
audience hasn't
audience.
been born yet.
Yeah.
2006.
2006? They'd be your average audience would be 14 if this is the case.
I
They're
think
like
I think
13.
we've got a lot of young audience in Valorant.
Yeah, and also I've never watched a movie that came out before I was born, so that tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, audience, comment below with your age and your mom's credit card number. Comment below so we can verify.
Do you guys remember? Maybe this was only a thing in the UK when there was like a really popular hairstyle of just wearing, like a single spiral on the top
Zoom
of
in
your
on her
head.
hair.
What? You had a hair poo style?
I didn't have it, but it was mega
not you.
popular in the UK. It was mega popular
Wait,
in the UK, and that's the exact
this?
style that it. No, not that. No one's there would never look like that.
That's definitely not that, but that's like a. But you're saying that someone had like a swirl
it was really popular to have completely shaved sides and then your hair just in some like weird swirl on top of
Sorry, in
like
what
you're an
part of
ice
the
cream
UK?
cone.
Did you live?
A hair poo. You're saying
Yeah,
you want
basically a hair poo. Yes.
Did you
Yes,
live
they're
in
walking around with a hair poo.
in the radioactive Red Rock area of the UK? Like, what the fuck when was that the style? The shaves heads?
I want to say this was in like 2013 or something, maybe 2012. I can't
Find a
even
picture.
remember.
Find a picture right now and put it in the thing
I don't
because
know
I
what to call it. What am I supposed to say? Hair poo.
Hair poo. Hair poo.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's not gonna
I have
come
no
up.
idea
And
what
also,
you're talking
once again,
about.
this reference wouldn't land with your supposed audience since you're apparently everyone in your audience is born 2006 and after. So they
Yeah.
wouldn't even.
I mean, coincidentally, 2012 is the year that most of Sideshow's subs were born, so they wouldn't have been around for this.
I don't understand what you mean, Josh. Can you describe it some more?
Well, have you ever seen
No
a candy
way! No way! If that's it,
No,
if that's it,
no, that's not it. That's
that
not
can't
it.
be
That's
it,
not
right? Okay, I was about to say.
Okay, let me
his
see though. I
face.
have found certain examples of it though. It's
Okay.
Did you guys ever see the? Did you guys ever have candy called iced gems as a kid? I'm not sure whether they were. Yeah. I think
heard of
they're like a thing in the UK. I don't know whether they're a thing in the US. And they're basically they have the same look to them as these people's hairstyles. But here's the here's
Is
like
this where
a
Josh comes
version
out
of
as a
it.
racist?
What do you mean?
What?
how
I don't know. Is this just
All
you
I'm
being
saying
racist? What is this?
No, look. This is what a bunch of people who live near me had their hairstyles like for some reason. I've put it in the live
No
chat.
fucking
A
way.
single example.
Yeah, you gotta be shitting me.
I have never seen this, Josh.
You're living in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory or some shit.
Well, they didn't dye
There's
it pink
no
and make it out
way.
of candy. It was still a hairdo, but it just looked like this because they shaved the sides. Anyway, my point to get around to this was I was hoping this was a shared experience that I could use to relate back to the fucking agent. And apparently I'm living in my own mythical world of hairstyle where I, as a bald man, just gaze upon everyone else's keratin as if it's something unique and mystical. This is the kind of dumb hairstyle. I mean, this is like taking it to the 10th degree. But this is the kind of thing. Exactly. This is what I used to see a bunch of
Are you
people
thinking of
walking around looking
Jedward?
like.
Do you remember the
No, I'm
Jedward
not thinking
twins?
specifically just Jedward, but I suppose they had a somewhat similar hairstyle. But
If you type in
was a bit
Jedward
like this.
twins, it might come up with what we're looking for.
It was like the shaved sides and the peaked up middle, but to such a degree that you just looked like an ice gem or the new agent, apparently.
Yeah, or
Valorant.
the new age. Back
Like that?
A bit like that, yes. Obviously, theirs was quite ridiculous, but
That
yeah,
is-
a bit like that.
This is not a swirl at all.
It's just not possible.
No, that's definitely more of a, I don't know, a
You can
quiff.
tell my
is it?
kids that this was the Da Vinci
quiff?
twins
You
before
mean a quaff?
TikTok.
A quaff?
Isn't it a
Quaff, quiff? Same thing, isn't it?
Is it?
Did you just call it
I
a
don't have-
quaff?
I think it's
mean-
a. I've been told it was a quaff my entire life.
In Britain, it's definitely pronounced quiff.
Ah, I
But
see.
I don't know whether that's just a British.
Well, it could
American.
be English.
I've heard both. But I don't think you can compare that to a quiff. Or
It's like a
well, there it
plume.
is. There you have it.
A plume.
Okay, yeah, plume is good. I like that. Well, you know,
Bloom, like he's a peacock.
Like a plume.
so a Valorant agent, huh?
What do you want to guess the name?
Well, it's presumably it's a name that has Y, R, and U in it.
Uh-huh.
I think it
And-
might be like Gru from Despicable Me, but just Ru. I think that might be it. And he has minions.
How would you pronounce his name?
Yuru.
Yuru.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what the footsteps were on Icebox? He sends out little minions to
Those are
do
the little
his bidding.
minions. Yeah, and then they're like, "Oh, banana!" Ah, they lose their mind and stuff. It's gonna be epic. It's gonna be really cool. I love what Valorant's doing.
Great minion impression. Well done.
You got a future in show business, kid. You know what I mean?
What? But did you say that the nationality of the agent got leaked?
Yeah, I think it's Japanese. I mean, I say leaked. There's people data mining stuff and like pulling like screenshots from videos that are supposed to be kind of hinting towards stuff. I don't really know how 100% any of this stuff is, but you know, when agents get leaked, normally this stuff is pretty accurate, even though it gives a weird idea of it. And yeah, I think one of the leaks was that it's the agent is supposed to be a Japanese duelist. Whatever that means, because duelist is like, I don't even know what these things are. Presumably doesn't have smokes. That's about it.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's pretty wide open what a duelist could have in this game. Oh yeah, here's where YRU comes from. This screenshot here.
Okay.
And you can see it says like Phoenix, Viper, Killjoy, and then
Why are you?
And then Gru.
Gru.
Yeah. I had
with his
seen
minions and Girl Scout cookies.
I had seen somewhere the idea was that he was going to be a lurking duelist. I don't know if that was that. I mean, did someone just make that up?
Yeah,
I had seen that being repeated on the internet, so I just believed
Is it
it
just
immediately.
it sounds like someone would say because they want to have a lurking duelist. So it's like it's going to be a lurking duelist.
Why would you
one.
want that?
I
mean, yeah,
You
actually,
answer me.
it sounds like a great way to ruin ranked. Just having a lurking duelist and a killjoy on your team, just baiting you every single
Yeah, I mean,
round.
isn't that
have
the
that as a
antithesis of what
Lurks.
duelist is supposed to be?
Like entering, you mean?
I'm pretty sure in the biography of duelist, the way to describe it is like it's always the first to go in and last to come out.
Yeah, but they just don't. I mean,
Yeah. At this point,
They
I don't
don't make
think
sense,
the,
do they?
the roles really make the roles have been blurred. I feel
Yeah.
like a lot already, and there's no like I don't even think there's set like there's some set paradigms, but at this point,
Sure.
who knows, right?
it's
Yeah.
almost pointless to even try forcing it too. Like I hear people talk about, oh, Riot should redo the classifications of them. It's pointless. Like, the game
Yeah.
is so young at this point that even if you said, oh, well, the meta at the moment is you need a smoker in the composition and you need a sentinel in the comp. Well, for starters, that's not true. I mean, people have been messing around with both of those things at various times, and you have no idea where it's going to go in the future. It's not like League of Legends where you have 5 set roles and the meta developed over time. It seems to be way more flexible, kind of by design.
Yeah.
So what's even the point, you know?
Yeah.
Why are you even trying
Very
to ham fist them into boxes?
Yeah. True. Was there any other?
Are we really going off nothing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
That
that's.
was the screenshot. That's all we got. We got those two screenshots.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was there
Can
anything?
we-
Is there anything more than that screenshot on the
Can
info?
we analyze the picture one more time, Kurt, please?
I
blue-
don't think there is. I think
Bring this up again.
The blue spike. I want
think
to
that's
get a
it.
fat zoom
I think
on it if
Kurt
possible.
enhanced it, didn't he? Didn't Kurt enhance it? Enhance.
Enhance. Bro, he looks
Wow.
like a Sims character.
I mean,
But that can't be the final design.
It
Yeah,
might not
it
be the
is.
final model.
That's
it
the
could be a
final
placeholder,
design.
right? So
There's
No.
no way that's the
But
final design.
I
That's
do
not a
imagine that
placeholder.
they are going to be blue though, because remember, based off the other teaser where the footsteps were like had the blue
Oh, yeah.
particle effects, so it was walking.
Yeah.
I imagine it will be some
Owen's
shade of
little brother.
blue. It's gonna be blue. I know
What
that
are you,
much. for
what are you
certain,
eating
so.
on your toast, Josh?
PB&J, bro.
Oh,
Very
okay.
nice.
Slightly disappointing. I thought
You
it
put
was.
PB&J in for morning food? I feel like that's kind of odd. I don't know why.
What? Why would that be odd?
why is that?
Because
odd?
peanut butter generally I feel like it doesn't go in the morning. It goes after the morning. Jams, butters, but peanut butter, I just don't
Why do
see
you
it.
draw the line at peanuts in the morning?
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you. I think it's some sort of systematic issue that's why I draw
Yeah,
the
it's
line
like being
peanuts.
instilled into you
If
from a
you-
young age.
Yeah.
If you had
Yeah.
some kind of sweet breakfast where you were having, for example, pancakes or waffles or something, you would open your mind to a bunch of different sweet
Well,
options.
peanut butter for
close it
sure.
immediately a
Peanut
peanut.
butter, I think goes with those options. Not so much toast though in the morning, even though they're all
But
bread.
you're fine having
What?
peanut butter.
You can't have
with
toast?
various different carbohydrates, but
hey,
not
Bren.
toast on a morning.
Hey,
For sure.
Hey, Bren, what's the next topic?
I think Kurt's enhancing the image,
Oh, even further?
right? I don't know.
How
I thought
about- how
I
can
could
we
hear
look at
Kurt
each
cleaning away,
individual
and I thought he was
pixel?
getting to work.
We're gonna be able to. We will be able to count all the pixels.
I want to be able to count the noses on the hairs on his
all
nose,
15.
The nose
Yeah.
is on his
15
head.
pixels.
the nose on his hairs and the hairs on his nose. I want to be able to count them.
Schnoz.
Show me. Enhance.
Are we actually gonna
Are
wait
you ready for
the
this?
photo
Yeah,
to
I'm
be
ready.
to come,
Alright,
to
Enhance.
come
I'm ready,
through?
Kurt. Show it. Let it rip.
Doesn't help. This has not made it any
It
better.
kind of looks
God.
like in the Guy Ritchie movies when they put tights over their heads. It's like he's got dyed blue hair, but he's put tights over his head to rob a bank or something. and his
could you
hair's just been
possibly see
squished
that?
together.
Is that what you're
into-
getting there?
Say again.
I can't see. I mean, this just looks like a blurry photo.
I'll tell. There
There's
is
a lot of
actually another
details here.
rumor that's going around the Reddits.
Oh,
That because
here we
because it's Japanese and because there's been some footsteps without people attached to it, that people have been playing too much Phasmophobia and they thought that RYU meant Yurei, I think it's pronounced, which is like a Japanese ghost that you can find in Phasmophobia, which I assume is culturally actually.
Dude, that's
I mean,
kind
that
of.
would be cool. That would be cool if that's the case.
Except the letters are the wrong way round.
Oh, yeah,
It-
yeah.
No,
They're
that doesn't
trying to
matter.
throw him
Why
off
you
the
are-
path. They're trying to throw him off.
Oh
they're trying
my
to throw him
god.
Off, they're trying to throw them off the path, the scent. You know.
Yeah.
Mm.
They
Okay,
know most
well,
people
that is
can't
horrifying.
do simple anagrams. I can't do anagrams. So like this is gonna be fine. No one's gonna know.
So I love that pet theory
Yeah.
up until the point that the letters don't match, and then it's like, oh well.
No, I
don't
still
think that's
like it
actually
and
true.
believe it.
Well. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about the only news we've got.
Surely there's
Use
some more news.
No, I don't
There
think
is.
there
more
is.
news
We'll talk
in
about
there,
the
I
night.
think.
What, more to talk about the agent or more to talk
Oh,
about?
no. I'm just
Yeah, I was gonna
get us
say,
off,
we'll
get us
be
off
on
the
this.
agent topic. Let's move from the agent. Let's
We're
get out of
gone.
here.
The Knights tournament happened
Yeah.
recently that saw Gen.G winning over Dignitas.
Yeah.
I watched a couple of these games.
Yep. The
Um,
audio listeners love that.
I watched a couple of these games. Didn't watch the finals though, which is why I'm confused as to why. In a later topic, we'll get onto that. Topic 5, Josh. When you wrote this up, was there a mistake?
No, that was one that Wyatt proposed.
Huh?
I'm dying. You killed the man.
What was it? He just full on belched into the mic. Wyatt's just like, the audio, they're gonna love that one. I'm crying. I just like.
It makes me think of like the saying, treat them mean to keep them keen. You just belching in their ears, just negging them like you don't deserve this.
We're just fucking. It was like a bunch of just farm animals just farting and burping into the mics. Okay, just go on. Okay,
Josh, yeah, but what did you make a mistake when you were writing up this run of show?
No, Wyatt proposed this later topic, and I wanted to ask him why he proposed it, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
what is
Gen.G NRG. Why Gen.G?
Why are we on?
We're not on
Wait,
that
are
topic.
we on Knights? Are we
Then
on Knights tournament?
What are
right?
we talking
But
about?
I'm
man?
confused because
We're on
Gen.G
topic 5?
won, right?
Oh, I
Yes,
posted that
Gen.G
before they
won.
won.
Yeah.
I just posted that early on. I posted
Oh.
that earlier.
Okay, that
But even still, I think there's something to talk about.
Okay,
there.
sure.
Something,
Well,
stop
let's-
teasing.
yeah,
Let's get into
let's
topic
start to
two.
the-
I thought
Topic 2.
some sort of
The Knights tournament. Gen.G won over
time portal.
Dignitas.
What were we talking about, man?
Gen.G ended up taking away the win, huh?
Yeah, this was a weird tournament because none of the tier 1 teams were in it, apart from Gen.G and Dignitas, who, I mean, you can argue whether or not they're tier 1 or
Would you
not.
say they're two? I mean, I would say Gen.G is well. That's a topic for later. I'd say that's still on the. I'd say Gen.G at least is still on the edge of tier 1.
I think Dig are as well. I mean, it's about what's the definition of tier 1?
Yeah, exactly. That's what you
That's
always have to define
the
whenever you have these
question,
conversations.
Right?
To me, I like to define tier 1 as the teams that actually, if they enter a regional tournament, they have a good chance of winning. Like you would say
Sure.
they have a very solid chance of winning it all,
Yeah.
which I think any of the top 5 teams do. But
Okay. Yeah.
I would say that Gen.G and Dignitas are just outside of that. But they would be classically part of like the upper group of teams in North America, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that they're on. Yeah. More so to me. We can just run with that definition of tier 1, but I think that they're on the cusp of, like, if you're looking at the top 10 teams or so, they're like teetering on the edge of remaining in the top 10. I think at the moment. But there were some pretty good team. There were some good teams in there, like Moon Raccoons were in there as well, so they didn't have a particularly great showing.
Yeah, they didn't have a good showing in this particular tournament. So
Could
it
you,
was not a.
could you pull up the bracket
time for
again,
them.
Kurt? If there's anything else not
I didn't even see Moon Raccoons in this one, honestly. Like I just skipped
Yeah, I
over
mean, they
them.
just went out.
Right.
Wasn't really.
I
Pretty good run from XSET. They
yeah.
were looking more impressive again.
So the first thing that I noticed in the round of 16 when I was tuning in was Dignitas versus NRG. Like that to me was like a fairly big early clash because NRG's got aspirations of being a lot better than they actually are.
And they were competing with Shanks, who's now their new full-time member. They have confirmed playing with Shanks.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
Josh, go ahead. I was just gonna say it was a horrific game to watch.
Hey man, you need help with your little,
I'm fucking
little orange
struggling.
juice carton?
I am fucking struggling.
You need help, son, with your orange juice?
I don't mean to take us off topic. I don't mean to take us off topic, but this fucking hole does not want to open. And the straw does not like. It says push with your thumb. I'm pushing my fucking thumb. It's not working. Slamming a straw in it, not working.
Just get like a knife and poke it. Just get a knife and poke it in.
I'm not gonna leave the podcast.
Use your canine. Use your canine.
Yeah, rip into it like an animal.
It's too indented. I won't be able to fit my teeth in there.
Use the Wyatt award behind you. I think that has.
No, I
like
got
a
it.
space.
Trust me, I got this.
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that NRG Dignitas game, of all the games I watched, there's nothing better to highlight just the difference, I think, between a team that is punching into the tier 1 compared to a team that is still firmly in tier 2, maybe even lower, actually. NRG were
NRG's tier 2 for sure. I don't think NRG's tier 1 at all. Not even close.
Pretty bad. I think you just look at what makes some of these teams actually good. NRG were not in sync at any point. At any point.
No, they really were not. I mean, they were struggling on every level, really. And I don't want to be too, I don't want to be too harsh, but I also really dislike, at this point, there's another wave coming in of NACS players who were kind of sticking with CS:GO, and now it looks like, okay, time to abandon ship. They're almost underwater now. The ship is pretty much sunk. So, like, Infinite is kind of a part of that new wave, where I think he's a good player, and I actually think he has a lot of potential, and I think he could be a pretty solid player. He seems to me like the kind of guy who like works hard, really grinds. I think he's probably going to make it in Valorant. I think he has a future. But when you're looking at a team like NRG, the last thing I want them to do is get another guy fresh from CS:GO into this roster. I just think that's exactly what they don't need. And I think Infinite will be fine in the scene regardless of if he's on NRG or not. I think he's going to eventually rise to a pretty solid level on a pretty solid team. But is he what NRG need? No. Should they have stuck with Effies? I think yes. And then they played Effies in this tournament, who's like standing in, or maybe he's trialing for Rise, who have done pretty much nothing. I mean, they've been in like the tier 3-2 area for pretty much since the dawn of that team's existence, and they also beat NRG with Effies, who NRG did not end up getting.
Well, where would you draw the line for the CS players and why? Because 100 Thieves sort of did that with Steel and Nitro, where they brought in two relatively fresh players to Valorant, and then they did really, really well.
Infinite has been playing Valorant at least in some kind of capacity since the beta, because he was part of that initial team that was trialing for Cloud9. So he must have been on and off, kind of dipping his toes in.
Yeah. He's been on and off. I think the difference between the two, though, is that you were really just bringing in Steel and Nitro. You were just bringing in two guys to catch up. Similarly to T1 even. Like, Daze coming in. Daze looks worlds better than he did a couple months ago. The last time that we had seen Daze playing. And you're just not seeing the same progression from some of the players on NRG, I feel. Like, people like Dazed and Steel and Nitro, who came in at relatively similar times, have just lapped these guys already.
So then is the issue bringing in CS players or just these players?
It could be, right? I think it might be a little bit of both, because the thing is, I assume Hiko is the kind of player on 100 Thieves with the Valorant experience who can also then dispense the knowledge when required. I don't think EU is that guy for NRG, despite how good EU is. I mean, EU looks like the one great aspect of NRG. He looks super good on that team.
Yeah,
But I don't think
Shanks didn't have
EU is
a
like
particularly good series at all. In particular, after he just had that explosive first strike event with Immortals, he looked really rough.
Yeah, but Immortals are also a much better system than NRG.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, EU looked really good to me, and on this Haven map in particular, he was saving them time and time again. But that being said, I think EU is a younger player. EU is not going to be teaching these guys how to play. I think he's just playing the game and playing it really well. But I think that they need help from a Valorant mind, someone who's been playing, which is why I liked Effie's on the team. I don't know if he was doing that, but it seemed like he was because they looked better than ever when he was playing with them. It seemed like he must have been helping them in some way.
I feel like I disagree with the concept of like a CS players not being able to transition as well, just off the nature of them playing like CS, I guess. Because the argument is that they're like stuck in their ways, right?
No.
What's the argument that you think that CS players shouldn't be moving over to Valorant? Like that this isn't a good
I think
fit
you're
with
misconstruing what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's not what NRG need. Like they need a Valorant mind. They don't need more guys just switching over who are to some extent going to be figuring out the game themselves.
Yeah.
Like even with Daze, when you saw him switch over, you can see the progression in T1 that happened over that period of time. But also Daze was playing with guys who had been playing Valorant. I just think that they don't have they're playing catch up, and they don't need more people playing catch up on the team. You know what I mean?
Catch up all over the table.
I think that the NRG team, instead of there being a problem with how they're approaching this, I think they need to reassess their expectations. For me, the biggest problem with NRG is that they have put the expectations on themselves of being good too quickly. And they are trying a lot of short-term solutions to getting good instead of buckling down with a set 5 players and a set 5 roles. And it just means that these players are never actually learning at the same pace as other people. Like, to me, the big difference between them and T1, for example, I mean, T1 doesn't really track because, again, the experience isn't quite there as well. But I think more so than like these CS guys not having the Valorant experience is just that they are constantly shuffling players and roles around. There's no way to learn the game properly when you are never playing with the same 5 players and you are never playing with the same 5 roles. You look at the roster that they fielded this time around. They got EU back on smokes. Daps has swapped over to being like the supportive Sova Sky kind of role. And then they've brought in Infinite on the Cypher Killjoy. That also, they've taken Som off the opping role. So like everybody has shifted roles. There is not a single player that's, well, apart from Shanks, who's a brand new addition to the team, there's not a single player that's on a role that they've previously played for NRG. How are you supposed to learn how the game is played and develop synergy with your teammates and actually become like a team that's learning how to play the game if you're constantly shifting things around looking for a quick solution? I just don't think that, like, you're never doing that. I don't even care about this roster. I think this roster could succeed if you give them time. But you have to be prepared to actually give them time. And you're only going to really know who's working and who isn't working after a certain, decent amount of time. Probably after the first challenges and masters, to be honest, like 3-4 months down the road. Rather than them chopping and changing and trying to find the perfect fifth, just accept there isn't a perfect fifth. Like, you guys are not a team. You haven't put in the work to be good enough. You're not just suddenly going to click. You need the time, and then you can make decisions about your roster.
I absolutely agree with that as well. I just think that the way they are approaching it, where it seems like they are trying to just find something that can mesh to some extent now, and then it seems like they want to work from there. I'm just lost because I think they had that with the Effie's roster, and then they just blew it up. That's kind of why I'm lost on the Infinite one now. I just don't think any of these decisions align. I just don't, at this point, I don't even necessarily see what they're trying to do. Because if they are trying to do a quick fix, this does not seem like the quick fix. It's another fix. This could potentially be a good roster. I think all the roles make sense. I do think Infinite will be good. And even in the Icebox game, he had a solid game there on the Killjoy. And I think that he'll be a good player. But it's like, are they trying to make quick fixes? Are they trying to do something with the long term now? Maybe they are. I mean, I think the roles kind of make sense now. I think Psalm has more potential on just a rifling duelist where you can just let Shanks be the AWPer. I think these roles are all fine. EU's good on the smokes. Maybe they are deciding now that this is going to be the roster and they're going to work with it long term, in which case that's fine. I'd like to see them. I think that it can work. I'm just lost on if this was supposed to be the quick fix. It doesn't seem to be that. I just don't think it was a good move if they were trying to do something quickly. I don't know. I think I'm just lost on what their goal even is right now. It's hard to read.
They seem a bit like Cloud9 in that they're lacking a vision. They seem like they're really lacking like a place that they want to go to, a style that fits their team, and like an idea for the future of how they're going to get better. And also, it's pretty weird to me that a lot of the new wave of NA talent that's coming in has been put on sentinel duty right at the beginning to get them acclimatized or something. But if you don't put them on the role that you eventually want them on, you're gonna have to reboot at some point down the line with your roles, and you're gonna undo a lot of the stuff that you've already done.
Well, I think sentinel duty makes a lot of sense for people approaching from like CS at least, because of the fact that like the fundamentals are all there from every player. You know, you're gonna be site anchor, you're gonna be, I feel like a lot of the fundamentals are there, and it's not quite as dynamic as you need to be with some of the other roles, I think, with how you use utility. So I actually think sentinel makes a lot of sense in terms of like for people entering, because you don't need to know how to do as much with your utility. It's just like, okay, you have good setups and you anchor sites and you're a pillar, but you're not like jet dashing in, throwing your smokes. You're not hitting like, you're not doing crazy stuff. You're not using the sky utility to clear corners. You're not breaching to clear all these corners. There's all these different usages. Not even beginning to talk about Sova and Sage and things like that. Like, I do think that this is like not a bad role for people that you're first trying to get them into a team and sort of learn the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Valorant is a game where you can have CS players, a team of CS players that would jump in, and because if you look at what Valorant has it's compared to CS as a game, moving over, a lot of things that carry over are stuff like spacing, I guess, executes, like timing up executes with the rest of your team, which kind of plays into the utility usage. The ultimates are different. What else is different to get used to, I suppose? The
concept of getting information from abilities.
That's radically different, actually. But in terms of the core fundamentals of what you require from a team, like I'm talking the bare basics, which is like just a general game plan, executes, and things like spacing. The pure fundamentals. That's fine to have as a base level and then building upon that knowledge. But like you said, Josh, you need to give them time. But I look at NRG and I think this is a team that's trying to build a clout squad as opposed to a team that's going to win. I don't know if you agree with this, but the Shanks move in particular made me think this. So I'm like, looking at this team, they look worse, actively, I think, with Shanks in the roster. The decision-making across the board. There's no better example than the game we were just watching, which was the Haven match, Dignitas NRG, to see what I'm talking about when I'm saying they're out of sync. Because Shanks sometimes is trying to take 1v3 clutches with an op. Like, just throwing away money, throwing away the guns that they've got. Or, like, their entire retake strategy is just one person inting and then one at a time just trickling in.
Their retakes were appalling on this map. I mean, it was... at the fundamental level, they could not trade each other correctly with time.
But do you think this is building a collab? Because what other player on this squad, other than like, I guess now you can include Infinite maybe, but like they don't have a lot of huge clout names on here.
I do still feel like that was a higher up
priority
decision because I mean another misfire from them, I think, is that they had xand, threw him on Cypher, and now he's on Pittsburgh Knights and he dropped like I don't know, he was dropping like 2 KDs throughout this tournament. He was just rolling on duelist. Like I think xand was another guy with he has a lot of potential. And there were some people saying that they even felt like xand was a better duelist than Kohler or Psalm when that was the roster. Yeah. And that might pan out to be true. It looks like it might be. So I think they might have missed another guy. that could have been very
That was
impactful
so
on this
unfortunate by
team.
EU.
Oh
This
yeah,
round
this was
ridiculous. I mean,
oh
wild
my
play.
god.
that's like point something seconds of his reload going off though, and EU just easily wins that round. That is unlucky.
Yeah, this
But,
is a
but
wild
to me,
round.
nothing about NRG screams clout farm to me at all. Like even the Shanks move. Shanks is one of the best duelist pickups that you could possibly get. If you believe as a team that you need a duelist player to replace Cola, which I believe was the thought process of like they realized that Cola wasn't working,
Sure.
period. So they wanted to pick up a duelist because it fits the rest of their team's roles. Shanks is probably the best available free agent duelist that you could find in terms of experienced at a pretty decent level, has what you need, lets Som transition over to playing more rifling, which might be helpful for Som as well. I think it fits the bill in that sense. There isn't really anybody else that I would have above him.
I really think it's a little bit of both. I think that he does fit the team, and he is one of the top duelist free agents in NA.
Yeah.
And he's getting viewers. I think it was just it was both things really.
I'll say this. I think Shanks has a ton of potential as a player. But right now he reminds me of like a young Sinatra, 2018 Sinatra. You don't understand what I mean by that, Josh? Where he's
I
like
know what you mean,
cocky kid, tries to take on too much of the world at once, and you can see it in his gameplay. You know what I mean? And he hasn't learned to work within that team environment yet, or like, you know, what I was talking about earlier, just syncing up with the rest of the team. Hasn't learned that yet, but the potential is obviously there. I don't know. I feel like you can give NRG time, but where do you call it quits? Like, there's some people don't have patience for it. I mean,
I mean, well, we really did just jump the topic. Do we want to?
I mean, I think it makes sense to talk about this now.
You know,
which is topic.
I don't know. There's some part of me that wants to say it about NRG.
But they just made a move. They made two moves. Like they have. I don't think
it's not about no. It's not about it. It's not about the rosters that they have.
Can we move to topic 5, Kurt?
What is? I do wonder who is driving the decision making for this roster. That is my question. Who is driving the decision making? What is their vision for this team? Because
isn't Jett their head coach, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
yes.
I don't know if that's who's
head coaches normally in CS though don't have power over rosters.
I guess that's true.
Hard to know whether that's the case. I
question who is driving the decision making because the vision from the outside looking in to me is incredibly blurry. I don't see what they're trying to accomplish. I don't see what these. I feel like every move they've made, they're telling a different story every time. I just don't see what
they kind of remind me of Nip in some ways, like a North American.
they might end up
pajamas,
like that,
you know. Just with the chops and changes.
But the thing is with NIP is that they cycle through so many good players. NRG haven't been picking up like world-class players within their region. Sure. They've been picking up players that are like either up and coming or have transitioned straight from CS. So that's what I'm saying.
I don't mean like an exact parallel, but I mean in their inability to settle.
Yes, but they remind me actually more of early T1, to be honest. And I think that the improvements that T1 made, NRG could make. I'm not saying they will, because most teams don't improve at the rate that T1 did. That's what made T1 exceptional, is that they started out so terribly and improved so fast. That is unusual how quickly they got better. So I don't think NRG are going to do that. But if you give them until the end of the next Challenger Masters cycle, so what is that, March or April or something, that's a long time. That's like 3-4 months. If they don't look like they're any good at that point, that's when you call it, in my opinion, and you really try and like reboot. But they've spent zero time on any roster. Like they haven't committed to 5 people at any point and actually tried to build anything out. So until they do that, it seems ridiculous to try and hit the reset button completely.
Yeah, but that's part of my problem, though. Why? Why have we not seen them with the same 5 at this point? I just don't. I don't see
what are you gonna call? Like, what are you gonna call? You're gonna say like Andy Miller, you're done. Like what's your call here exactly for
my call
NRG?
is that I feel like they need someone with a vision, because it doesn't seem like they have that. Or their vision is it's very hard to decipher what it is from the outside looking in. And they do have a vision. It's just very narrow, and they need the exact right 5, and then they're going to go forward, which maybe that's what it is. And I don't know what they're actually looking for at this point. And I think if Mr. X would hear, he would be making this point, and it's one that I would agree with, which is that it's sort of like what he was saying about FaZe, where it's the name value, the brand value of FaZe versus their actual ranking as a team in the hierarchy, and where and the disconnect there, and where does that drive a change as well? Because I think I am also getting caught up in the like the gravity of the NRG name, because it is a massive brand in esports right now, and so far this team has just looked like a mess. I mean,
I mean, if NRG, if Andy Miller actually wants a team that is going to be, I'm not going to say the next San Francisco Shock, because come on, you're actually not going to get that in another esport. But if you want a team that can compete at the tier 1 level, then this core is not going to be it for 2021 in all likelihood. I mean, they would have to undergo astronomical improvement in order for that to be the case.
But they have to build the
NRG's, I mean, if NRG's expectations are for that to happen, I think they're wrong. That's why I opened up this entire discussion with, I think NRG need to reassess their expectations. I just don't think that that's reasonable for this group. And so, yeah, I guess it comes down to what the organization is actually after.
Right, because what are their expectations? That is the question. I'm
to
so
me though,
lost
NRG isn't a, as much as NRG are a heavy hitter across a lot of the esports titles that they participate in. When I think about them coming from the world of Overwatch, I think about their slow and steady progression at the beginning of the scene. And when you couple that to the fact that Andy Miller came out publicly at the beginning of Valorant and said, we don't want to get invested yet, we want to start slowly and just see where it picks up. I feel like the org, and just kind of speculating on what I know from Andy Miller and the organization, doesn't want massively winning rosters until the esport is proven to be like massively winning for the org. So I think they would be okay with this slow beginning, as long as in 2022 they transition to an actually winning roster.
But are they though? Because they came in signing. I can't remember if DAP's contract was ended with Gen.G, but Gen.G CSGO were doing really well, and they pulled out DAPS from CS, the coach Jett. I think Sam was still under contract. They bought out Kohler. I mean, it looked like they wanted to put.
Well, it depends. It depends on the value for all of those, because the thing is that NRG is pretty publicly stated, and the same goes for like at this point, like, or just maybe not publicly stated, but essentially you can see from both Immortals, but especially NRG as well, that they are not spending money like crazy, including with Valorant, where they publicly said like, we're going to wait to see how it goes. We don't know the figures on those buy amounts. If they were like a reasonable amount, then it really wasn't dropping fat stacks comparatively. And from all things when I've talked to management of NRG, because you have name dropping, but I know like Bikeage, and we all know Andy Miller and stuff, and Andy Miller talks about this a lot. So industry, man. But like they pretty publicly say like, yeah, we try to take a much more sustainable approach than a lot of the orgs entering Valorant at the start. So we don't actually know what these figures were for the buyouts, right?
Am I misremembering it, or was NRG one of the teams like that were complaining about the salaries of Valorant at the start?
Yes, NRG 100% was.
But then also there was this big wave where them and a bunch of other organizations got invested, and it was like 2 weeks after they said we are not going to enter the Valorant scene.
I mean, that was like,
so it's clear that there was some kind of communication from Wyatt, like saying what their plans were for next year, for example, or at least giving them some little teaser so that they would be more incentivized to get involved. They didn't just suddenly find money in their pockets or something. And also, for all that NRG have said that they are, smarter with how they spend their money, they have bought people out. Like, they didn't just pick up random free agents. They actually paid buyouts for a bunch of players.
So yes, but I'm not 100%. I don't know if you can find it, Kurt, maybe. I'm not 100% if I think Sam still was. Maybe DAP's contract ended with Gen.G, but CS buyouts are typically out of control. So if they did buy those players out, I would expect the buyouts to be fairly pricey. Probably the least expensive of all them being the Kohler Immortals one. What?
I would say that's what it hinges upon, is the buyout tier.
But it's difficult to say, like, even if you had a figure for what the buyout was, right? So even if we knew that they spent, I don't know, 150K on buyouts or something, that number in and of itself doesn't really mean anything unless you know what the market rates are for top teams that they are trying to compete with, or other teams in general that they're trying to compete with. Sure. Like, how does that contrast to the amount of money overall? Because then you factor in salaries and stuff. How does that factor in overall to how much money FaZe are spending, how much money T1 is spending, how much money Cloud9 is spending, et cetera, right? Like, what tier of Valorant spending are they actually at, and how does that correlate? There's none of that transparency available, so you can't really tell. Like, there's just no way of knowing. Like, even if you knew the numbers,
the hearsay is that, from everything I have garnered, is that, but also this is much earlier, so who knows how they evolved since then, right? But this was like much earlier in the scene, is that they were definitely, in terms of an org involved, was definitely one of the lower spenders, like the lowest spenders. But also, this was early Val, and since then they bought out players. There's been more investment. Who knows what's morphed, how it's morphed since then? So honestly, I don't even know.
Has been driving around in a Bugatti.
Well, see, but I don't think the Immortals Valorant squad is packing 10 might, but I don't think the Immortals Valorant squads are in the Bugattis. Is the difference, because Immortals has also been a company that's very publicly, cut back on a lot of their spending across all branches of their esports,
Right, and but they haven't actually spent. Like, Immortals are an example of an organization that picked up all free agents. They didn't pay buyouts for any of their players. Yeah. And so when you sell them, obviously you're going to sell them for like a pretty hefty chunk of money.
Mm-hmm. So we don't really know.
Well, why do you put Gen.G in this, Wyatt?
Yeah,
in this kind of regard.
I just threw Gen.G. Yeah, I
because
felt there was something to discuss.
This is at the start of the tournament, right?
Because they won
this was earlier on in the tournament when they were kind of struggling. I'm like, man, is it? Are we approaching time where there needs to be something done with Gen.G?
I feel like we've had the
and
same
I think it's actually worth
ago,
discussing, even though they won.
Yeah.
And I mean, the title of the topic is a bit dramatized, but I do think it is worth talking about. In that Gen.G,
they beat Ninja's team.
They were a perennial.
They lost to Ninja's team. I misread the score.
they were like a perennial top 4 semifinal team since the dawn of the game, and they've been slipping down. And they signed Sean, who was, I mean. We were hyping Sean up very heavily on the show because his gameplay was incredible when he was on Moon Raccoons and previous. And since being on Gen.G, they've not looked that great. They've been it didn't seem to particularly help the team, and they've still been I don't want to say slipping down the ranks, but it seems like they've slipped, and now they're kind of just hanging around that, I don't know, 10th-ish area in NA.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like they're making
around 10th.
significant improvements. Though in the tournament, they had some more interesting set plays against Dignitas. They had some nice some of the pistol rounds, actually. They had some nice pistol round strats. So it seems like they were expanding the playbook and the ideas a bit. But I feel like, for me, over watching them since the Sean roster began, the story has been GMD and Hwin. How much can they provide as individuals? And their success is very dependent on that. And so I think at some point I wonder as well, what are the expectations of the organization? What are the expectations of the players? Are they content with falling down like 6 places in the NA rankings? I can't imagine they are. Do they feel like changes are needed, or I don't know. So I figured it was a team worth discussing in that light.
Well, the weird thing about Gen.G, though, is that they win this tournament even though the competition isn't enormous. They're playing against Dignitas, and they're playing against, like the other team that they won 2-1 over was xand. It's like the other biggest team that they actually beat on this run through the Knights tournament. But in JBL, they had a number of BO1 wins against good teams too. They beat TSM, Cloud9, and Sentinels all in that that cup to top their group. And then they lose to FaZe Clan, 0-2. And that kind of pattern seems to repeat itself throughout Gen.G's history too, where they look better against good teams than they do against middle teams a lot of the time. Something about the structured manner in which they play seems to do better against the top teams who respect each other than the middle level teams who are actually going to push you constantly and play more DME and hold W and disrupt their play. I think that Gen.G, if they I could see them making it back into the top 8, top 6, something like that. I don't think they're going to 100% continue this downward trend. Like if there was another first strike tomorrow, could I see them finishing in the top 8? Yeah, absolutely. Like I think that's a possibility. I don't think that they look like they're on an upwards trend, but they have enough volatility to be able to do that kind of stuff. So at that point, you're asking, should we make roster changes? Should we potentially kill a roster that's doing all right in order to maybe make it great? And I don't really know what move you would make, who you would remove, how you would make this roster better.
I would propose adding some behind the scenes structure. I think a strong coach to take away maybe some of the workload off of who's their main caller?
GMD.
Yeah.
GMD,
I believe
yeah.
it still is.
GMD now.
To take away some of the workload, because from what I've heard with Gen.G as a team, with their calling, is like too structured at times, right? Like that's been one of their criticisms, is that sometimes they're just too easy to read because they will literally map out almost exactly how they're going to be approaching different bomb sites in an entire half at times. I think adding some outside element, like a good coach, to just say, okay, so you have a general game plan in the match, but I want you to try and instill some of that flexible nature that's missing almost, right, from a team like this. Because we know Gen.G is capable, we know that they're good, but it's that problem where they get stuck in a predictable manner during a match that kind of cripples them from really approaching the higher parts of the game or getting to that top spot again. You remember when this team was number 1? None of the other teams were really disciplined enough. There wasn't really counter-stratting in the game at that point because it was so young. But Gen.G, I mean, their style worked, and it is just getting out of that. I feel like you don't necessarily need to blow this team up. It's one method of dealing with it, but I'd feel better if they added some existing outside element to come in like a coach to assist them and push them in the right direction.
The weird thing about a coach, though, is that I personally feel like it's hard when we talk about coaching in Valorant because the job is so new. But if I imagine myself as a coach of one of these Valorant teams, I feel like it would be easier to implement structure than flexibility. Because when you are trying to implement flexibility in a team, what you're really asking is you're asking for the IGL to recognize mid-round situations and call the mid-round calls correctly. And that, to me, puts way more emphasis on them in the server than it ever does on me outside the server as their coach. Because in order to develop those protocols, you would have to go through so many different scenarios and try and run them through what the correct decision would be in those myriad different situations they could find themselves in. Whereas if I was a coach approaching Gen.G, I could try and do that, but I think that would be really hard for me to give that knowledge to somebody else.
I think it's even harder.
I don't think that. Yeah,
it's even harder than what you're saying because I think you need to instill that into every member of the team, not just the IGL. Because what you eventually want is that you want the team to be in a scenario where it's maybe a 2v3. You got 2 players alive. 2 agents that they don't normally work together, but you want them to be able to, on the fly, work out, okay, what utility do we have? What execute can we go for? What little play can we go for to try and open up a section of the map? You want them to be agile in their thinking, which is a training across the board. It's not just an IGL thing.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And that is, I think that's got to be one of the hardest things to actually train a team to do from a coach's perspective. So I'm not really sure that that's a good answer for them. That's a very long-term thing that the players should probably be working on for sure, but I'm not sure that would really solve things for Gen.G. What I'm wondering is whether they should just lean into their style and try and develop their playbook significantly more than they currently have. Like even the rounds that people were really praising from this tournament, like I think it was just one person on Reddit actually, but they were spamming it in every thread about Gen.G where they were talking about this pistol round.
Oh, really?
Where they basically just did a C split, but it's through B.
It was like a Vision, it was a Vision Strikers-esque kind of C split.
Yeah, it's pretty simple to the exact Vision Strikers
yeah,
play that we saw in
yeah.
September.
Yeah, but for Gen.G, it does seem like they're sort of developing the playbook further to some extent.
And that seems pretty valid. Like you could pretty easily see how that could help Gen.G.
Yeah.
To become less predictable, to add more synergy to their team.
Yeah, I do think as well, for me, watching the entirety of the tournament, it does seem like they have made some positive improvements in that direction. I think individually, you were seeing more from some of the players. Like I think Mikhail, his Sova was actually looking really good. His ults were ridiculous. His utility
also,
usage was
Hin
excellent.
was on this tournament. Hin was on this tournament the entire time.
Really, the question mark for me actually at this point, surprisingly at this point, is Sean. I don't know. I was so hype on him joining this roster, and he's just been fine. I just thought that we'd be getting more out of him, honestly. I wonder if he just needs more time on some of these roles to get a bit more comfortable, if Duelist is even the role for him. I do wonder if maybe, behind the scenes in scrims, I wonder if they've tried the Sean Sova GMD Duelist and Win Jett comp, because I still feel like that would be really good, but maybe they just don't want to do it. Maybe Sean doesn't want to get off Duelist, but one thing I will say, they're playing a lot less Reyna, and I like that. Same thing for Dignitas as well. The Psalm is not playing the Reyna anymore. Glad to see that. They're playing a lot more Raze and a lot more Phoenix.
It definitely suits Gen.G more. I mean, it doesn't really make sense for Gen.G to be playing so much Reyna when they're not like a loose team.
I just kind of, I don't know. I still, every time I'm watching Gen.G, I can't help but think I wonder how that comp would go if they just had GMD on Duelist and Sean on Sova, because for me, all of the best Sean games were when he was on Sova. He just was so dominant.
Yeah.
Because
when you look at his stats, he has 0.86 KPR on Reyna. So he actually does manage to frag out a lot of the time, even though his impact isn't enormous. But he had a 0.83 on Sova. Like from that role, he had a higher KD and a better, not quite better, but a similar KPR to when he was playing the most frag hungry role in the game. That's kind of crazy that he was able to put up those kind of numbers on that role.
Yeah, to me, I don't see him when I'm watching as that just freak aimer entry machine. That's just not the type of player he strikes me as naturally when you're watching him. A lot of his excellent play came from excellent decision-making, timing, positioning, utility usage in the moment. In tough situations when he was on Sova. It wasn't just him running around with sicko aim. I mean, he does have really good aim, but it was how he was the full package when he was on Sova. Where I almost wonder if just the Duelist is even just limiting to an extent his frame of mind in the game and what he's supposed to be achieving for them on the team.
When you watch GMD play the Omen, it seems like both him and Sean want to be the second guys in. They don't want, neither of them want to entry, because GMD is playing Omen and he's IGLing for the team. And then whenever Sean goes in and GMD is behind him, it just basically seems like Sean is the bait for GMD to get the kill when they're playing that duo. So that puts a lot of pressure on Huynh to make a huge amount of space alone for the team, because it doesn't seem like that's the style that Sean really wants to play. Maybe the reason that they haven't tried GMD going back to Duelist is because they like him IGLing, and he just doesn't feel comfortable IGLing from the Duelist position of creating space for them. I don't know. I personally don't think though that it's over for Gen.G. at all. I know that this is going to sound stupid for a fan listening to this because they've just won a tournament, but remember that we're coming at this from Gen.G look like they're about 10th at the moment in the NA power rankings, and they were 3rd, 4th, like 3 months ago, 4 months ago. So they've slipped quite a lot in comparison to the competition. And what we're asking is, do they want and can they get back to that position if they made a change? I don't think they
can. I don't think they need to make. I don't even know why I mean, I know why, but like honestly, I don't put Gen.G even close to the same tier as NRG. Like I don't think they should be even close to each other in a conversation. Like you look at the current topic and they're next to each other, but they're not. They're not. They're millions of light years apart. Okay, they are not at all like currently.
Light years, huh?
They are just they're in terms of just overall roster stability, their performances, the players. Like it could be something as simple as just swapping some of the roles around for this team, or maybe just developing their playbook and leaning into the style more. Like or even as Bren said, building a better back end for them, which could go into other things as well. But like I just don't think that like. I look at Gen.G and I see a promising future. I see a westward journey. I see an Oregon Trail potentially for Gen.G still, but I don't. But NRG, I'm not seeing that with their current trajectory until they commit to a roster and build like a base for that team and actually what works and what doesn't work versus just slotting everyone out like all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want it to be the thing where because I made the topic, people think that my opinion is that it's time to call the clock on Gen.G just because I thought of the topic of that, because that's also not my opinion. Gen.G? I think that, I kind of agree. I don't know if they'll be able to make it back into the top 3 or 4. I think that's going to be a tough journey. But I do think with the right changes, with the right playbook development and maybe role swaps, I could see them getting back to around 6th through 8th reasonably.
Yeah.
Final thoughts.
Well, my final thoughts were that Gen.G showed us some really interesting stuff in this tournament as well in terms of their compositions that they were running on Bind. They had a Silverless composition on Bind where they were playing with Mikhail instead of playing on the Sopa. He was playing on the Phoenix, and they had Hwyn move over to Sage as well. So the Gen.G have also always been a team that have been willing to try weird compositions to see if they can find stuff that works for them. And it was working well for them. I mean, they won on Bind in the final map of the series against Dignitas was partly because they were running this weird composition and Dig didn't really figure out the win condition against it. They couldn't figure out how to abuse them for the lack of the Sova. They weren't really playing extremity control against them. They weren't playing deep in hookah and forcing out forcing them to actually push into them. You need to abuse the fact that they don't have the drone, don't have the recon dart, but they weren't making the correct adaptations. They weren't finding them when they were pushing for info instead of using the drone or the recon on defense. So they ended up winning that. So I'm kind of interested if Gen.G can be the weird team of NA where they find niche strategies and stuff that fits their players very well and play off meta and catch teams out in that kind of sense. They seem like they put in enough server time to be able to discover stuff like this. And it can be effective. I'm not going to say that this is the new meta on Bind or anything, but for a couple of games, this is the kind of composition that can throw off an opponent and win you a tournament.
Let's talk about some drama.
Heck yeah.
Let's talk about the drama of this tournament, the Knights tournament. Because this is our clickbait title. I can see it now. Ninja Ego? Question mark, question mark, question mark. All caps. And then we put after that, it's like, but tournament organizer dumb, maybe?
But then YouTuber face. Then everyone.
Yeah, like
we all do YouTuber face.
Like the YouTuber faces. No, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna have to spell out this timeline for me because the information that I've got from this, I've been gathering it from Reddit threads, which isn't exactly the most reputable
I believe
sources.
everything I read on the internet.
But my idea of this is time and play against BBG, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They accuse one of the players of cheating.
Do you want me to spin a little tale here?
Go ahead,
tell a
go
little
on.
tale.
How about you give the breakdown, and I'll add in additional details later.
All right. It's the nights before Christmas. little Valorant tournament, little 10K tournament.
Okay.
Little outing. Ninja, team time in.
Yep.
They're doing all right.
Mm.
Little BO1 win over Gen.G. Not bad.
Ooh.
Not bad. They end up in a BO3 against Built by Gamers. Built by Gamers. They've got the new roster as of a couple months ago. Brought in Critical. As you can see, he played pretty well, didn't he?
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a high KD.
That's a high KD right there. Some pretty good stats from Critical.
Wow.
And BBG, they take the win. I mean, with stats like that, listen, you're going to take a win over time in. After the match, Critical, the question is, you might have played a little too well.
A little bit too well?
Yeah. Can humans do this alone?
We have the clip to support this story, by the way.
Yeah, I'll find it while Avast spins.
It's like a billion views on one of the
clip.
channels that this was, whatever channel that match was streamed on. So Critical, he played incredibly well. Time in, there might be a little fishy here. I don't know if he can people do that? They sent in the clip. They asked the tournament organizer, we think something's going on here. And the tournament organizers decided, you know what? You're right. That one clip does look suspicious. We're going to disqualify Built by Gamers now. And so that's what they did.
They disqualified them from...
Built by Gamers were disqualified. Oh, we're seeing the clip right here. So Critical, he's alone. He's in a 1v4.
I've seen this.
He's in market.
It's just the round's over. He's trying to save. Maybe get exit frags.
Yep. And so
that's the clip.
He put his crosshair onto the other side of the entryway because
can we 0.25 that, please, Kurt?
Yeah, we're gonna need that real slow. We're gonna need that real slow. Okay. So you can see he's worried about a player entering from the left side of the door. Now he's worried about someone coming in from the right side of the door because I'm pretty sure he heard an audio cue because they were running around.
You notice his crosshair went over the player's head, Wyatt.
Yeah, I mean, that's
the corner.
And you can tell it's cheating because it aim locks first to his knees and then goes up to his head. That's how you know it's
the way it is.
Yep. That's the subtlety of the modern aim lock. They throw you off by attaching it to the knees first.
I did see a close-up clip of this. Like somebody had pixel analyzed the crosshair, and it just goes. It goes to the left of the model of the body. It doesn't even lock on. It goes to the. Well, it's just.
It looks as well that the guys running around probably entered audio range, so he moved his crosshair to the right side of the door at that moment. Also, I mean, apparently, what I had seen as well, people had thought that Critical was cheating before, and he's already been investigated. No less than three times.
Of caught cheating
he was
in other
found,
games, though, wasn't it?
What was that? Avast?
Wasn't Critical one of the players sort of like, it was like who was it?
Nisao?
Yeah, like Nisao, that had been caught cheating before in other games.
In Empire
correct?
Total War?
I think that because Valorant does have a lot of players that have cheated in other games. I mean, that's just like kind of a fact. Like, it has happened, but it doesn't always mean you're cheating here, you know. And I mean, it just depends.
All we can go off of is he'd been accused of cheating in Valorant.
Yeah.
Riot has cleared him apparently 3 times. Don't think he's cheating. So they get disqualified. Obviously, they're upset that they've been disqualified on the basis of simply allegations, right? And then a third party, some sort of investigative third party cheat someone.
I don't
know what they're called.
Hold up.
I need to do
what am I missing?
I need to do the supporting details.
But we've skipped over something as well. There was stuff even before that.
Are you going to talk about James, the Pittsburgh Knights, talking to the ownership of BBG? Yes.
Oh, I mean, I was going to spin. Okay, yeah, sure. If you want to get into the details now, I was going to give the overarching little story.
Okay, fine.
We can go back to
my Maldives bubbling to the floor. Go ahead, Wyatt. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to So I'm just going to finish the overarching Christmas tale. Okay, so. I lost my train of thought. Where were we at?
We were talking about the third party cheating.
So they got disqualified. Players very upset, of course. Then the third-party organization that investigates these
The
cheating
Overwatch
matters,
PD.
yeah, the Valorant PD, Overwatch PD, they came in
Police department.
and they determined that he was in fact not cheating in that clip. The Knights responded and said, "Oh, whoops!" And then they requalified the team, and the Ninjas team were now disqualified after being given the win. And then Built by Gamers said, "No, we're not going to play. We'll see you guys in 2021." They just pieced on out of there. And then neither their team nor Ninja's team played. Gen.G got a forfeit win, and the rest is history.
Fucking chaos.
But the more details you get into, the stupider it becomes.
Yeah,
Josh, how about we split? How about we split the load?
Let's get into the finer details.
You just go for it.
I just go. Okay, so let's. So Wyatt, you know, our boy Foe is on that team. We used to play with Foe in Overwatch.
Yeah, we did.
Actually, he was on our boy Unreal Huckleberry. Yeah, he was on our team. Close to E-League qualifying, by the way, 2016. Just want to put that out there. But then secondly, real close until Wyatt killed us all. But the second, so now let's we have this overarching story, but the best part doesn't even begin. So do we have the two? Then James, I believe that's the president of the Pittsburgh Knights, or the CEO. He posts on Twitter, "We talked to the BBG ownership group and they agreed to the DQ." Rob Wiz, one of the players, and this is before the cheating investigation, anything else. Rob Wiz then says to James, "We talked to our owners too. You never spoke to them about this. They never agreed to this. Why would we agree to be DQ'd?" Radio silence by James and the Pittsburgh Knights. After that. Nothing was ever said about this topic again because what?
Yeah, but also he says, so the tweet says, team Built by Gamers are disqualified due to an ongoing investigation. Ninja's team will be moving forward to play against Gen.G for the quarterfinals. After reviewing the clips, I made the final call to disqualify the team, says James O'Connor, the Knights president, who's also previously been a coach in North American CS. Used to coach Liquid before as well. And there was a whole bunch of stuff with him in the NA scene about whether or not he was any good as a coach. But that's a totally different matter. He said, "With the tournament continuing tomorrow and us putting competitive integrity first, we suggested BBG decline to play and they agreed." What does that mean?
And but they clarified that the suggestion was to the ownership, saying like, "Hey, stop playing. We think you're cheating." And the owners somehow would have said like, "Yeah, you got us there. We look a little suspicious there." And then Rob always says, "No, that never happened. No one ever spoke to who. Like, what are you talking about? No, we never were offered. Like, you didn't give us the option to stop playing. Like, that was like that didn't happen." So already, number one, like what the fuck? And the second part, and the part where it gets even better, is when they reverse the DQ and they talk to this, what is now the Valorant anti-cheat department. And so there's a little history here. There's a little lore for you lore masters about this Twitter account. So this was started by a little, I would call essentially religious zealot by gamers. So that would be, this whole account started on Overwatch, and this guy thought he was Batman. He thought he was digital Batman.
I mean, he now works for Riot.
Yes.
But
so
that is crazy to me.
He works for Riot. So this guy that did this Overwatch and now Valorant cheating stuff, that would go and he would break into the homes of people and he'd be like, "Where is she? Where are the cheats?" And she, they would like, and then like, so this, he would go and they'd find these things, and he got a job at Riot. So now this account is not even linked to Riot in any way. There is no official association with Riot because GamerDoc does not run this account.
It's not even linked to the person that's linked to Riot.
He doesn't even work for this thing anymore. He doesn't run it.
Even if the GamerDoc, the guy that made this account, even if you believe that he has now reviewed so much stuff that he understands how cheats work, which is pretty reasonable. Like, if you watch a huge amount of cheating stuff and do a lot of research into it, you could become very good at identifying when cheats are used and when they're not. More so than the average person who's just watched a bunch of CS in the past.
More so than James, for sure. More so than James.
Yeah, exactly. But even if you believe that he is actually a fairly decent expert on it. He's not even involved at all. He's just left it in the care of someone else.
It's essentially if I were to talk to a K-pop stan account that posts fan cams and thinking I'm talking to BTS, that is what James just did with this cheating situation, because there is no official Riot affiliation. GamerDoc, the guy that works for Riot, doesn't work for this. They essentially said we consulted this Joe motherfucker over here on the street, and he just said, nah, he's good. And now James like, actually, they're on DQ'd now. So at every stage of this, it was complete lunacy. It was complete lunacy at every stage.
And then Ninja replied to one of the tweets saying, yeah, and now they're just being professional, undisqualifying the team. And I'm like, what?
The best does not exist. The other one, the tweet where they said James talking to the BBG team owners, and it was like Ninja with like a mustache. Because it's just like, it's so ridiculous, the situation, because like they didn't talk to BBG about asking them to politely DQ, and then they talked to a random fan cheat account to determine if they were or were not cheating. Like, what?
Dumbassery all over the place, bro. I mean, do you think that did you see, what is the tweet that you linked in the live chat, Josh? What is this?
The tweet I linked in the live chat is James, the Knights president, saying that he has made his decision to undisqualify the team based off the assessment of anti-cheat PD, which is this just essentially random volunteer Twitter account that reviews people cheating and comes to
this is fucking mental, actually.
Decision of whether or not they
also there's an extra layer too, and I'm trying to find a tweet for it, but someone was talking. Someone was talking about how apparently part of the reason that this was elevated so high is because Ninja was saying that if they didn't DQ them in Discord, that he would go to Twitter and make a huge mess, a huge fuss about this.
Wait,
and so
who claimed this?
This was, I have to go find the tweet, but it exists. It was out there. The BBG guys supposedly talked about this. I'm not sure though. So
that is the whole rest of this debacle.
The rest of the debacle.
I thought that was just people kind of like just joking around. That
there was apparently a series of tweets, and I was reading them, and I can't find them. But
I don't think it was joking, though.
That might be hearsay, though. So
I think it's probably hearsay. I don't think that they were joking. I think people are genuinely considering whether or not it was Ninja's size and weight that led to this decision being made so quickly. Because, for example, it is the president of Knights who is overruling his tournament organizer admin to make this decision. The TO is a respected and well-loved guy within the CS scene, the Knights TO. He's worked with a bunch of the players before. The TO himself, and I keep saying TO, normally we mean TO to mean like the organization. What I mean is the actual guy that does the logistical organizing of the tournament, like the head admin, I suppose you would call it, or whatever. But the head admin of Knights had to say publicly on Twitter that it was not his decision because he was getting set up as the fall guy for it. It was specifically James that did it, and he overruled his decision where he was like, "No, of course we can't just disqualify them from the tournament."
That's a stink. That reeks of some chains of command being jumped by one particular individual,
or it's just a complete misuse of power by James, the president. And considering how he handled the rest of the scenario, that's what I'm more inclined to believe as well. Like there's nothing about this that was done properly by the president of Knights. Like everyone underneath him seemed like they knew what they wanted to do, and then the suit at the top is like, no, fuck it, ban them. And that's it. It's just over. Oh shit, no one ban them.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like just as soon as the public outcry came over how absurd it was like, I guess never mind. I gotta change my mind now.
I found it. I found the thread actually. It was from Grego.
Yeah, it does. It's definitely
from Grego, who was competing with BBG in this. I think BBG in this tournament, right? Or was it Mythical? I can't remember.
What?
Yes.
I mean, Grego's on
Ninja's team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was on time in. That's what it was. He was time in. Yes. Right here.
But Grego was coming out and saying that Ninja was swinging his clout around.
Yes. So
but they're on the same team.
Well, Grego was talking about the tournament and responded to this stuff. He posted a twit longer about it.
This is. I mean,
Could you link it, please?
Do you want me to have this in the twit longer?
Can you get, send the link. Shoot the link over.
Bro, I wish I was 40 again.
So then there was also a thread underneath that where someone was talking about this as well, and I don't know who is Trogdor, but he works for Nerd Street, and Trogdor says in response to this. This is precisely what happened. Jasper actually went into their team speak and told them to chill and that he would handle it and this was talking about Ninja was talking to me personally, who's this Creed guy? I'm having to go find this, but pretty much just a whole thread talking about how Ninja was threatening to take this to socials, and this whole thread in Twitlonger.
But also, Trogdor has since then deleted one of the tweets that got reported in an article. Like it got quoted verbatim in an article, and he's then gone and deleted the tweet. So either
I don't know where we're standing
by what he said, or like he realized that he was essentially just like slandering Ninja or something.
Oh, I put in the Valorant chat. Sorry, not the live chat.
There's so much text.
Either way, I mean,
Either way, it's a shit show. It's a shit
Let's go through what should have happened. If you suspect that an opponent is cheating, you should submit the clip for sure. There is nothing wrong with doing that. Like if you have a genuine suspicion, which you might, if you're a player and you think that Critical has cheated against you, there could be cheaters in the Valorant scene. It is all happening online. That is a reasonable suspicion to have about some people. You want to submit that clip to a tournament organizer and get it reviewed by Riot? Perfectly fine. To try and escalate that further would be ridiculous, though. That is the correct process, is to submit a clip, whether that is like, for example, with G2, with the guild situation where they were using a Sage boost on top of a Killjoy turret. You submit the clip. After that, you know, it's out of your hands. You do what you can to just submit the clip, and you allow the people to do it. You have to run it up the chain of command to Riot, though. You don't have the authority to just ban based off clips as a tournament organizer like Knights. It is patently ridiculous to do that. And also, if you're ever in a position like James is in, where you run an organization or something, let the people whose job it is do their job. Don't overrule them with stuff like this, where you're just gonna get a huge amount of backlash for doing it incorrectly. That is so stupid to do something like this.
It's very old esports.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is.
There's the clip again.
Which is like, I don't even understand. Like, sure, does the clip look a little weird? Yeah, but I really don't even.
It's not the fishiest thing I've even seen in Valorant.
It's not even the fishiest thing I've seen in Valorant at all.
I remember talking about this on a episode of this very show a while ago. I can't remember what brought it up, but I remember mentioning there are going to be plenty of cheating accusations in this game from people who weren't maybe necessarily around in CSGO and aren't used to seeing people aim in a game like this, because there are so many moments where people will put their crosshair somewhere where it's directly on some guy's head across the map because they decide to put their mouse on a different angle. It happens all the time. Yeah. There are things like that all the time, man.
I think this is really stupid, and I'm glad we talked about it.
It is. Yeah. It is. I mean,
just it's hilarious drama, isn't it?
I mean, I'm glad BBG just said like, no. See ya. We're not gonna play. I like that. That's the one.
I like how they said, like, I like when James literally just said, yeah, we talked to the ownership. And like, no, you didn't. What are you talking about? Like, what was James, the president, like when he said we talked to them and offered them and say, please DQ yourselves. Why would you just blatantly lie about this?
It just doesn't make sense.
He might not have blatantly lied as well. It's possible that there's like different parts of the ownership or something that don't talk to each other. Like I don't know. Like he went.
There's no, but surely even if that was the case, Rob would have said like, you talked to like our social media marketing intern for the month, you know, like not like, because if the ownership had been asked, surely the ownership would communicate to them that like, oh, well, they talked to us, right? But there's no way the ownership still would have agreed. Like, it wouldn't have made any sense.
Yeah,
I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Let's talk about something else. This is a little minor news topic. We can cleanse our palate a little bit by talking about...
I love Valorant Twitter. I just want to say that. Valorant Twitter pounds. It is so funny. There's just dumb drama like this, and also just decent banter between the players too. It is spice-filled, and I love it. Go on, sorry, Bren. I just wanted to cool for a second.
All right, Immortals have benched Jmoh. They dropped them on the bench. What does this mean for the Immortals squad? Always in flux, always making these money moves, you know. And this is the latest one. Obviously, we don't actually. I don't know if have there been any announced tournaments for North America, like coming up in between now and the challenge?
There was one in January.
I'm looking at one. Let me look at the events page. Let's take a look.
Is there anything to look forward to? Are we ever going to see this Immortals roster?
There is
December monthly.
There's a Nerd Street monthly, and also there's a Complexity Invitational.
Oh right,
yeah, the Complexity one is the one that I was thinking of. It's a 10K tournament, but then so is Nerd Street Gamers. So. But actually, there's a Nerd Street Gamers Winter Championship as well, which is a 25K prize pool.
And this is all taking place in late December to early mid-January.
Okay.
So
so there could be things.
For me, this strikes me as not an Immortals money move. More so, an Immortals feel like we can actually be a top team and make money. We can sell players and also then just be a good team. I think that this strikes me as maybe they felt like they could have made it further in First Strike than they did, or performed better against Envy than they did, and they feel confident they could potentially crack into like the top 6, top 4 maybe. It seems like what they're gunning for. I mean, I think I liked the pickup of Jmoh. I think he had and has a lot of potential. I just don't think it's fully played out yet. Pretty new to the top scene, new to playing games at that level, and he had flashes of just insane potential to me. Like the 26-3 game, like things like that. I mean, I think he definitely has the skills. They're just not honed yet, and this strikes me as Immortals want something a bit more immediate. They feel that they could get a player who's
they've used benching before as well as a tactic, I think, to make their team better. In fact, I think they're so far one of the teams that utilize benching. Really, I guess them and T1 both have utilized the bench to improve their squad and use that same player again. So I mean,
they very well may.
Who knows if Jmoh is actually gone at all? Like, Jmoh might not be gone. He might just be benched for a little bit. Honestly,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I was kind of. I mean, this move would have made a lot of sense if I could think of a natural replacement. Then again, it's Immortals, and they pick people up from who knows where, and they normally end up being pretty good. So I don't know who would come in. Obviously, Shanks would be the most natural replacement. They just played with Shanks to replace Shot Up in the most recent tournament, and then Shanks himself is actually more of a Jett Opper than he is the Reyna, which is what he was playing for Immortals on. He looked good when he played with Immortals. So I could have seen a world where if Shanks had not been signed to NRG, that this move made a lot of sense. It's not obviously not going to happen now, but that's immediately what went into my head. When I think of Jmoh, most recently, I'm thinking of his Haven performances. It seemed like he really understood how to play that map, more so than any other map. His stats, generally speaking, aren't that great. He wasn't the most reliable opera in the world, but he had a number of Haven games recently where Immortals looked insane on that map because he was lighting the world up when it came to his opping just there. And I feel like he was maybe just starting to get comfortable on this team. So I was actually feeling fairly optimistic about Jmoh's future after a period of time of feeling like, oh, he's clearly the weak link on this squad. There's something massively lacking from him. His performances recently, where he had just been annihilating, like the 2 games that Kurt's just pulled up here, were giving me a little bit of hope that maybe as he refined his overall map pool, Jmoh would really be the X factor for Immortals to push it to the next level. So I don't know. Maybe I am hoping that he returns to the active roster after just fleshing it out, but I don't see why he would drop to the bench just to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Jmoh, it's so. I've talked about Jmoh we've talked about Jmoh so much when I've made my constant young player on not as young team analogies, and like I don't know. I feel like Jmoh, he's got the potential. Like everyone agrees, he's got the potential, but like. It's sort of, to me, Jmoh currently is like he's not irreplaceable though. It's not like how I felt about like David P leaving G2, where I felt like it's a lot harder to find that replacement, even though like, because not only looking for a player that's as good as David P, but also an IGL. But Jmoh is like, you're just looking for a young crackhead, not even necessarily young, but just a crackhead Jett player that ops.
Could be an old crackhead.
Could be an old crackhead.
Any age
could be
crackhead.
someone. Could be a veteran crackhead. You know, like I don't know, but like the thing is that so I don't think Jmoh is nearly as irreplaceable or like harder to replace as much. But it's also like the potential's there, and so I'm personally hoping that Jmoh gets benched. They maybe do some sort of weird Immortals roster magic, and then he comes back, and suddenly he's essentially done his like anime training arc, and he's ready to pop off.
I would like
I've
to
just
see that
seen,
as well.
I've just seen a tweet though that he put out about this situation, and he's very much speaking in the past tense as if he's gone from.
I didn't see that tweet. Let me see. Let me find
he
it.
said, "I'm benched." It's the pinned tweet on his Twitter. He says, "I'm benched from Immortals." I put it in the live chat as well.
Yeah, I see.
I said, "I'm benched from Immortals, but still under contract with them." Great, and then it continues a bit, and then he says, "Grateful for the achievements and experience I had with them, but time to focus on the future," which very much indicates that he's actually moving on from the team, but they're looking to trade him rather than him just being a free agent.
Well,
I hope.
Jmoh.
Well, I still think he has a lot of potential, and I'd like to see him fulfill
I
it.
don't think he's done by any means. I think Jmoh he's shown that he can put up really good performances. He just needs to find the consistency.
Yeah.
Yes, it was definitely, it would be wrong to say that he was like a huge component of this Immortals team, though. He was absolutely the X Factor player where it was dependent on whether Jmoh was actually in the server or not as to whether Immortals were able to crack that next tier of competition. He was wildly inconsistent. I think you can very reasonably say that. So if he joins a worse team, he might look worse as well. I think he needs some work to get better, but he's not a terrible player by any means.
Yeah. I have a lot of faith in Immortals, though. Outside from just the structure, I have a lot of faith in the Immortals team, the actual players, the core of the team with Stani and Gangsta. I think that a lot of the recent success has come a lot less from the firepower and a lot more from an actual just being a well-structured team with good leadership. So I have faith in them moving forward.
He's scouting for their new player in Gary's mod. Dark RP. Scrounging around looking for youngsters to convert into Jett
what's
entry
the next
players.
topic?
Okay.
Well, shall
The
we
next
move on
topic
to the next
is,
topic then, I guess?
The next topic is North American power rankings. We're gonna do a little power rankings thing, you know?
Yeah.
Little power rankings thing. We're gonna do North America to begin with. Josh, you wanted to do North America. You wanted to do top 10 teams in North America. North America is the region we're gonna be doing this in. And then we're gonna be slotting in afterwards where we think the rest of the world fits in for a overall power rankings in the world. So we've got the highest level of technology to try and make this happen. It's a tier list maker online.
It's proprietary, this tier list maker.
And we are going to be basically organizing our top teams. I think we need to add teams to this.
Yes. Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning though with.
Are we doing world first?
No. We're not doing.
No, we'll do NA.
Okay.
But the reason that I wanted to do NA first is because there was a lot of discussion in this last month, just after First Strike, of who the top NA teams actually were, because we had different winners for First Strike and JBL that happened kind of consecutively back to back. And also, whenever you interview the top players within the scene, they give different answers to top five. Like Hazed was on Immortal Minds on the 11th of December. So at this point, that's 10 days ago, right? And he had a top five that had Envy really high up, which a lot of fans would not have Envy high up after their most recent performances. And he had 100 Thieves, I think, down at fourth. Maybe he even had them at fifth. I can't remember exactly what his
to
top
me
five
that
were.
I feel like I'm smelling Scrimbucks already from that.
Yep.
I think it's something of Scrimbucks, but also I think also it's kind of considering a longer period of time too. I think a lot of people are still considering some of the Ignition performances and Pop Flash and stuff. Oh no, Pop Flash was Ignition, but that kind of time period as being relevant. And that's over 3 months ago now. It has been more than 3 months since Pop Flash. I wouldn't consider any of the Ignition tournaments relevant to who the current best team is, personally.
I agree.
Yeah.
When was I mean, it's a smaller tournament. When was that Renegades Nerd Street Gamers one? Because in my mind, that was like right before First Strike. So I'm thinking it's like that forward in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's basically that forward. I mean, I can look up when that was, but I think that was pretty much exactly 3 months ago.
I can't see the day. When was that?
October 17th.
October.
Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much 3 months ago.
3 months and 5 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's reasonable to include that as like the least weighted, but still.
I also think when you're like an
That's 2
early
months, 2 months
scene,
and 5 days.
the scene,
oh yeah,
like the scene's progression in a very early scene, especially as players from other games move over and such, is like it's almost like logarithmic in a way, where it like goes like it's not a linear thing of just like, okay, this teams are getting better, this team's getting better, blah blah. It's just like suddenly like the scene's like blah, and it's like and it's just going up. It's just an exponential growth of sorts.
Enough
So
talk.
it's can't talk about it.
I want to see action. Let's start formulating a structure here.
All
Let's start putting. Okay, let's just work roughly, and we can try and make arguments. So I think 100 Thieves at number 1, just off the basis of them winning First Strike.
I agree.
Can't argue that.
I think you have
Sentinels.
to, I'd like to also have a discussion about whether Sentinels should be considered number 1 as well.
I think there is a fair discussion to have between 100 Thieves or Sentinels.
What did I say? No talking? Yet he's talking. He wants to argue. He wants
I'm just
to
putting
argue.
them up there.
Unbelievable.
No, we're making a
wants to
rough
argue.
assessment, so I'm saying throw them in the same tier to debate.
So is this a silent tier list? Do we just put them up and we don't even talk about it at all?
No, we
just
talk about it afterwards. I want a rough structure, and we look at a team and we're like, are they number 1, are they number 2? We have the discussion afterwards. But Josh just can't shut his fucking yap for 5 minutes. Just has to talk, has to inject himself.
All right, put Sentinels number 2.
I'm muted.
Sentinels number 2. I think
muted.
TSM number 3.
Okay.
And then maybe Envy.
T1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
T1.
T1 definitely 5.
Cloud9. Immortals.
I'd put Gen.G over Dig. For sure.
I mean, do we dare put FaZe Clan? We don't have the FaZe logo.
I would
but-
actually. Where's FaZe?
I
would
think
put
we should only do
FaZe over. I would put FaZe over C9, maybe.
I think
No,
we only
that's
do
crazy.
top 5, to be honest, because
Okay. Yeah, sure.
we don't have
Oh, these are the
10
teams to get out of.
NA teams on this list, because this is the World Power Rankings list,
Yeah,
and you're never going to
sure.
get down past.
Yeah.
Okay.
NA.
I mean, I think we
So we're
cracked the
gonna stick
code
with
right here,
top
to be
5.
honest.
You think we're
Probably
sold?
because I said it all, so I agree
Well,
with
I mean,
what
also,
I said.
I agree
but-
with. I wouldn't put it. These are. I
wanna-
can't think of any other squads.
I want to throw Cloud9 in the group as well to discuss, because they were a top 3 team coming into First Strike and did so well at the beginning. I want to talk, even if we don't agree that they're in the top 5, I want to kind of talk through like the process of why we don't think they're in there, you know?
Sure.
Gotcha. So you want to start right at the top, though. 100 Thieves and Sentinels as the number 1 team. Now, the biggest argument is 100 Thieves just won First Strike. But then the larger argument is it wasn't a good showing for Sentinels because of obvious reasons that we've been over. Obviously, with tragic circumstances around Shazam. And just the team in general not getting much practice before First Strike. And then them coming into, was it the JBL tournament?
Yeah, they lost the Sentinels in JBL.
Yeah, I'd like to. I want to pose the devil's advocate argument for Sentinels here for a moment, because even though very few other people have them at number 1, I think there is some argument to have them at number 1. I'm not saying I agree with this, but here's the argument as it would flow, right? Is that Sentinels had tragic circumstances surrounding their First Strike qualifiers. They start out, they've had very little practice, and the games that they lost that were significant losses, like for example the one against Gen.G, was for seeding anyway. And the loss to 100 Thieves for seeding anyway. So they didn't particularly matter. The only game that they lost that was a significant match was to the team that ended up winning, 100 Thieves, which they won 1-2 in a very close game, where the deciding map was essentially the first map, Icebox, that they lost 14-12. That was their pick. If they had won that, they win the series 2-0, but they didn't. They lost 14-12 and ended up losing Bind as well. So that I think there's very reasonably a world in which Sentinels could have if one round goes differently, won Icebox there against 100 Thieves and ended up winning the tournament despite the fact that they hadn't really practiced that much coming into this tournament. Then once they get a bit more practice, they look a lot better coming into JBL, and they end up winning that grand final again with the only other team that causes them significant threat being 100 Thieves, who, okay, you can make the argument that 100 Thieves weren't trying that hard, but by the time it got to Icebox, which again is the deciding map when it comes to these two teams, they were actually playing 100% 100 Thieves. They had Steel Calling, they were running all of their actual strats, they were running their real comps. It was, as far as we can tell, a pretty reasonable BO3 between these two top teams. And so to me, the argument for Sentinels being number one comes from they were the best coming out of Ignition and coming into First Strike, though that doesn't really mean much considering the time frame we're using. They didn't have too much practice, and they still had a run that could have potentially seen them win the First Strike tournament. They lost to the finalists. They win at JBL. If you're willing to grant that they were playing significantly below par during First Strike, then they've performed well enough by the eye test that you could say they're still the number one team. They just had a bit of a handicap.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that devil's advocate argument?
I think that's a very fair argument.
I
think the two key factors are First Strike is weighed way heavier than JBL. So 100 Thieves win a more significant tournament, the most significant tournament in Valorant so far. And then also in JBL, I mean, I don't care about this, but like the 100 Thieves streaming Nitro leading thing. So if you want to say 100
Which, like I
Thieves
said,
were playing
didn't actually happen on Icebox, so I would still consider that BO3 to be a pretty fair BO3.
Yeah, I don't weigh that aspect super heavily, but I am going to mention it for the sake of the commenters. But I still put 100 Thieves at number one. I just think First Strike is just weighed too heavily compared to JBL. Like, even if you kind of nullify them both having one BO3 win against each other, just the weight of the tournament that 100 Thieves won. And over the course of First Strike, despite the seeding game losses, Sentinels were just not entirely convincing for me. So I still am I'm gonna leave 100 Thieves at number one. But it's close, and you can argue for Sentinels. But yeah, I mean,
that's the big question mark.
They won First Strike.
For me, what you mentioned, Wyatt. That's the big question mark, which is Sentinels didn't look too hot throughout the entirety of First Strike. You know, even in the seeding, in the qualifiers, which is the main argument against it. I quite like it, though. I quite like the argument you've put up, Josh. I like the idea that Sentinels are the number one team. My little wall of ketchup towers falling over.
I mean, I think it's completely fair because historically, too, Sentinels has been the best team in the region leading up to this as well.
Yeah.
You know, like
they were the favorites
pretty
coming in,
period
right?
of time.
I think the favorites before the qualifiers and everything else, like, you have to say that Sentinels were the favorites. And at the time, 100 Thieves were still improving. They were looking like a kind of like definitely punching within the top 5 of NA. But Sentinels were the favorites. They didn't show up in the qualifiers. Some other circumstances happened where they couldn't show up in the main event, although they still brought a close game to 100 Thieves with no practice, which I think does need to be mentioned as well. And I think I do like the idea of just putting Sentinels at number one just to really rile the people up. Because
I just say,
Steel tweet after you, 100% still you.
I don't believe in my argument. The reason that I don't believe that Sentinels are actually number one is that I don't think you can use excuses to push you a level higher. Like because the thing is, there are very reasonable excuses to be made about Sentinels' performance during First Strike and the reasons that they didn't win. But at the end of the day, you can't extrapolate from that and say that they would have won. Like that, the argument to me falls down there. They could have beaten 100 Thieves. That is very possible that they beat them in the semifinals. But it is then a stretch to say they would have won the grand finals against TSM because you don't know how that matchup actually would have occurred. There's no guarantee that would have worked for them. And you don't know that they would have beaten 100 Thieves even had they been better. Like it's more an argument that makes you confident about the future of Sentinels, but it doesn't change what actually occurred. And what actually occurred is 100 Thieves won the biggest major that's ever happened in North America they made radical improvements. They beat every other team that would be considered a top team: Sentinels, TSM, Envy, T1. I don't think they actually beat Cloud9 on their run. No, they didn't beat Cloud9 on their run. They actually lost 1-2 to them in the first qualifier. But that was, and Cloud9 aren't really in the running for number one team. Never have been. So
it is so close between the two of them. But yeah, I think you just have to give it to 100.
I mean, it secures their number 2 spot for certainty, like you said, Josh. With certainty, you could say they're number 2. There's no way around it. And on top of that, well, like they are, I would say that like realistically, there's just no like, I don't know where else even to put them on the list.
I think some TSM fans would definitely have TSM at number 2.
Well, I'm not a TSM. I'm not some TSM fan. So, I like TSM, but I'm not some TSM fan. So I will not be putting them at number 2. So it should be Sentinels, I think. And at the end of the day, excuses aside, like the most important thing always, even if some team is like dominating scrims, popping off, owning smaller tournaments, is winning the major and showing up when it counts. And that's all that really matters. So
that is mostly what we're basing it off of. Like DSM, they made the finals, got some good wins. They looked good. JBL, they looked just absolutely out of gas. The tank was on E. But in First Strike, the tournament that mattered the most, they showed up, at least to the extent that they made the finals, which is an achievement. So I think they're pretty solidly in third right now.
TSM, you mean?
Yeah, I think TSM are
we swapped the TSM. Okay, we swapped. Well, then,
I think TSM are solidified in their third spot.
So we're all solidifying. I think 100 Thieves at number 1.
Yep.
As much as I'd love to make the argument, as much as I'd love to overrule you all and put Sentinels at number 1, just to really get those engagements flowing, just to get the hate, the dislikes, everything just rolling.
Which team do you guys feel better about in 2021?
Honestly, I feel better about Sentinels myself in 2021.
Really?
Yeah,
I feel good about both the teams. Is that an option?
Yeah, I feel good about both.
Yeah,
I feel good about both, obviously, but like,
like I don't think it's gonna be like I think it's gonna be like a rivalry. It's not gonna be like a clear like Sentinels is always gonna be dominating 100 Thieves, and 100 Thieves is gonna be dominating Sentinels. But I feel like Sentinels, when I look historically and I look at the recent performances, overall, I'd value Sentinels as looking to be the favorite team going into 2021 still versus 100 Thieves. It's just 100 Thieves finished 2020 as the better team, 100%. That's just how it worked out.
Do you think Sentinels are the highest peak in 2021?
What do you mean by highest peak?
Well, like, what's your question, Josh? Is your question like who can go furthest?
Well, for example, easy way of putting this, who do you think is going to win more tournaments? Like, who do you think is going to win more challenges or masters tournaments?
I think 100 Thieves.
Really? Think it's going to be 100 Thieves?
Yeah, because the team has made radical improvements in such a short amount of time, and I still don't think they've reached the pinnacle yet of what they can achieve. Even when they won First Strike, I felt like they won First Strike because the team that could give them the hardest competition came into it underprepared, which was Sentinels. And I felt like if they were taking the JBL tournament properly and seriously the entire time, the entire way, there's a chance that they would have won that as well, as opposed to just using it as, we're streaming, we're just chilling, blah, blah, blah. But I think in terms of the peak potential for 2021, I think 100 Thieves has it. We've seen Sentinels kind of like evolve from the right at the very beginning of their introduction as a team in North America, way back when. It feels like it was probably half a year ago now, right? And we've seen them evolve to be the top dog in NA, but I just can see 100 Thieves going further. I feel like.
Do you want to hear my X factor for Sentinels? Actually, it's the Zombs factor. No joke. Not in terms of like he's the one that's making Sentinels good, but because I felt Sentinels were initially, I feel like when they were getting really good, I was like, there's no way this team is going to stay on top when Zombs is playing the way Zombs is.
I thought the same thing. Like right at the beginning,
Zombs is getting, and now, but after the end of JBL and after the end of 2020, all things considered, I was looking at Zombs' trajectory and I was like, actually, it's not that bad. Like I feel like
he played well.
Yeah, I think Zombs is an integral part of.
That's why I favor Sentinels, because I feel like if Zombs continues to play well, that team has a really good peak for 2021.
I'm with you. I think back to my early opinions about Sentinels. Like, I remember saying that Zombs needed to go. I was just absolute peak fucking armchair analyst take. Well, but I mean, I think back then it was almost justified as well from the way that they were playing, because I think Zoms was their main caller and they were so one-dimensional. But the improvements they've made since then, and Zoms is a really integral part of the Sentinels machine. I mean, I'm in agreement with you, Avast.
I know. We're so smart. We're so smart.
The TSM situation is an interesting one, though. If we're moving on to TSM,
yeah, let's talk TSM. Third team, because
the TSM have been extremely highly rated for a long time in North America. It's like the media is biased towards them as well. Every time people talk about them on broadcast,
this guy really talk about the mainstream media about TSM. This guy out here, the mainstream media and TSM here.
I think there's a very good argument that TSM are the best team of 2020 in North America. If you consider the entire year, because they started really strong in the beta, they've continued to be, they won a bunch of Ignition tournaments, won as many as Sentinels did, and then they finished second in First Strike. Like they've achieved top results the entire year along. Were they the best team of the last 6 months? No, I think that was probably Sentinels. Were they the best team at the very end of 2020? No, I think that was probably 100 Thieves. But across the whole of the year, it was probably TSM. But their actual most recent performances, they haven't really beaten they beat 100 Thieves early on, and I think a lot of people are going to point to that and say that they were very back and forth with them. But after 100 Thieves made the adjustments post this match, it looked like the gap between them increased, if anything. With the next 0-2 loss, and then the 100 Thieves just kind of escalating away from them. And even when they swapped up their style to play the triple duelist compositions, I think TSM have not quite been on the same. They're on the same level, but they're not. They're not number 2 or number 1. I know that people are going to dispute that, and TSM themselves do believe that they're like second or first best in the region, but I don't see them on the same level, and I don't see them on the same trajectory as the top 2 teams.
Yeah.
If we're going off the criteria of ranking this by the past or whatever 2 months since Renegades Nerd Street till now, I mean, you can't easily put them at 1, despite being good the whole time.
If you,
I think that honestly, I think that they're in a very respectable place in third, and I have a personally, I actually have a more positive view on them heading into the future than I might have a few months ago. I think that they showed a lot of dynamic thinking, really, moving forward. Like they've changed so much with the team without changing much at all. Like they've found ways to continue to evolve, despite what people may have seen as limiting factors with the roles that they could be playing and the skill level of some of the players, which I think has increased. I think that you're seeing a lot more output from Cutler as time has gone on, and I think he looks like a lot more adequate of an individual player on the roster. I actually have a pretty positive view of them going into the next year. I think that they look like they should at least be in the top 4. If not, I think pretty static in the top 3 for quite a long time.
If you
they could win
make the argument, I just want to say real quick, if you make the argument that TSM should be a number 1 team, and you think that because you're basing it off of the potential of the team, and you're not weighing tournaments as much, that is almost more of an argument that Sentinel should be number 1.
Yeah, I would agree. I tend to agree.
As opposed to TSM.
If you want to go historical basis, like why would TSM be number 1 and not Sentinel?
Yeah, if you're not taking into account tournament rank, like the tournament placements as much, because TSM didn't win as many tournaments in the latter half, then Sentinels would just win that by default, I feel.
Sure, yeah. I think that's pretty reasonable. I know that, instead of going down that path, because I just simply agree with you, I'm not going to even try and argue devil's advocate for that. What I'd like to say instead is just that our original perception of TSM heading into First Strike was that with the op nerfs, this team's single focus on Waddell being an incredible talent, we thought they might get exposed a little bit. We thought they might significantly drop in the rankings to be in like a 5th or lower level team. And they have not at all. Like, they have been able to maintain an elite status still within the scene. Even if you rank them at 3rd, which I think is reasonable, they're still an elite tier 1 team. If they come into any tournament, they have a chance to win.
Absolutely.
Also, these aren't big gaps here, for at least for me personally. None of these are big gaps. Like, I could see next year TSM wins several events. Like, it's very possible.
Yeah,
I could see 100. I could see Sentinels winning several events. 100 Thieves probably being the consistent number, potentially losing Vince or staying at number 1 spot. Like, this is not like I'm not looking at giant gaps between these top 3 squads right now. This is just sort of where they're at currently heading in.
Weirdly, I feel better about TSM now, even though I've got them in 3rd, than I did in, let's say, August when I had them at 2nd. Because I thought they were trending downwards in August, when I thought the team was fairly inflexible and was relying on Waddell's op a lot. And I think the adjustments they made post-op nerf, in terms of not just juggling the rolls around, but having Waddell rifle more, and it's not so much that the team changed, but I have noticed things that I was previously not noticing about the team, like their actual way that they are covering for each other and getting into position to be able to help each other, and their actual teamwork. And it's not so much their trading, but it's like how they hold angles for each other, how they use abilities to help each other. That kind of stuff is all really, really good on TSM. And it's something that was not really getting showcased when Waddell was just killing everybody. So that I think is a very positive.
They also have potentially the best Phoenix player, like in the world.
And now they found a style to actually work off that as well.
Sabroso has been so good as well.
Oh yeah, and Sabroso's fucking raise is so nasty. So.
Yeah, I think that despite them maybe dropping down 1 rank because 100 Thieves now exist in the sphere of the game. For me, they solidified that they are just a legit top team that is here to stay. But do we want to move down to number 4, Envy, the team with just scrimbucks everywhere?
I'm going to open this up.
Let's kick my org while it's down. Go ahead, Bren.
I want to open this up with an argument that T1 should be number 4 over Envy.
Oh, so you think Envy should be number 3?
No, he should be number 5.
Wait, sorry, say again.
Envy number 5.
Wait, and who do you think should be number 4 then?
He thinks T1 should be number 4.
Oh, T1. Oh, Christ.
This is my argument.
All right, make your argument for T1.
So, I think if we are to look at the First Strike event, North America, and if we're weighing this higher than other events, which I think we should be, because it's the biggest tournament in North America, it's what literally the entirety of 2020 was leading towards. Let's be real. Was this tournament as the pinnacle. I feel like the meteoric improvements of T1 at the tail end and their performance when the competition was toughest says that they should be rated higher than Envy, despite the fact that you can make an argument that Envy consistently before that was much better. I felt like Envy actually fell short in First Strike in North America, despite the fact that Envy also made it further in the main event.
I actually agree.
And the reason...
My mind might be ripe for cult leaders to just take advantage of, but I instantly agree with what Bren is saying.
The evidence I'm proposing here is T1's performance against 100 Thieves, the winners of the event in the first round, where they had a very close series, despite it being 2-0. It was like 13-10, 13-10 as the scoreline. And I thought that Envy actually flopped in this when the competition, the pressure is toughest in this moment. I felt like they didn't perform as well, despite making it further. So that's my argument that T1 should be number 4.
I actually agree. I can't. Yeah, I agree. No, I really do agree. To me, they had opposite trajectories. Envy went in. I think Envy must have been. I think the Envy scrimbucks are just the economy is just inflated. The bubble is popped. I mean, it was just because they went in and there was so much hype around them, and they did look really good. But I think Envy and T1, their trajectories were just exact opposite. They passed each other as T1 was on the way up and Envy were on the way down. They just crossed paths. I think that I actually agree. Yeah, I think T1 should be in 4th. I think they had. I think that if the two teams played, I think T1 could have beat Envy right now. And if you factor in JBL, where Envy just got smacked around just as a little icing on top of why they should be in 5th.
Bro, Avast is ready to square
I'm starting
up.
to agree. I've become such a T1
it's not
believer.
unfair what he's saying at all. Like it's not unfair, but then T1 got like fucking 13 forward by phase and one, but also that was in the quals, so I'm like, it doesn't really matter.
But here's the thing. The JBL stuff is all fine, and the not living up to expectations is also fine. But you have to be aware that the whole reason they didn't live up to expectations is because the expectations were way higher because they were a better team earlier on. And if you're going to consider it, the thing that I dislike about your argument is that it has severe recency bias, even in the last 3 months. Like if you're weighing up the whole of the last 3 months, Envy has been better over the longer period of that time.
No, I agree.
But the more recent results have been more disappointing for Envy, for sure.
And what it comes down to is how much you weigh first strike. And like that performance in that main event, I think, is what it really comes down to.
The thing is, neither of these teams got close to winning the event, though. Neither of these teams were even close to.
But that's because
getting to like the top 3.
T1 faced the winners of the tournament.
T1 had a respectable showing against the winners of the tournament. The first map, Haven, was super winnable for them.
This is in the main event, Kurt.
Yeah, in the main event. And then an Envy against TSM, I mean, they just looked... I mean, they did not look good. TSM just walked all over them. And it looked like Envy... From their end, they did not put up much of a fight. TSM were just doing what they wanted. I
think like the question about this though comes down to should you ignore the entirety of the qualifiers? Because
Envy was way better as a team during the quals, for sure.
Envy was clearly, I mean, when you look at the qualifiers, in the first qualifier, they lost to Cloud9, but they looked like the second best team in North America. They were pounding the competition. Yeah. They were beating all of the decent teams, and then they lost to C9 in the grand final. They come into the next qualifier as well, the closed qualifier, because they already booked their spot into the next one. They lose to Sentinels, all right? They've always lost to Sentinels. They've matched up poorly against them every time they've played. But against every other team, they win, including a 3-0 shit stomping of 100 Thieves, where... All right, it was for seeding, but there is no way that 100 Thieves were genuinely not trying. Like the team just doesn't do that. They got owned in that game. That isn't the same 100 Thieves that isn't as good as they are now. But still, that is less than a month ago at this point.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's a month and 10 days ago. A month and 2 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. When they played that grand final.
Also, when they got schlocked by TSM, I personally feel like TSM is another matchup for Envy now. Looking forward, that's not going to be good unless Envy adjusts. I think Sentinels and TSM are two teams that are terrible matchups for Envy, just because of how Envy's been playing. I also weight that as part of it. Is like they essentially got like they're the grass type and they just got fucking fire typed. Like
I think
that's switch meta for you guys.
I think that might be chokers too. Like I think there's some level of when the competition increases, they seem to flop. I don't think it's just because Sentinels and TSM are stylistically good against them. I think it's because they're the top two teams in the region and they have boomed themselves when they go up against them.
Envy looked like they had zero confidence in that game against TSM. TSM quite literally just did whatever they wanted. There was no pushback from Envy.
And then they got 13-0'd by 100 Thieves. So every time a team gets good and wins a tournament, Envy are like, well, can't beat them then, can we? Here's
the thing. Is there a bit of recency bias? Yes. But also, the recency bias is derived from the recent results being the most important.
Yes. I think that's quite reasonable.
It's not unfair. I don't think it's unfair. Should we vote on it?
Wait, I have something to say about that statement. Then why are you valuing First Strike over JBL if you're going to say that?
What? Because it's the most important.
Yeah.
The First Strike's main event is the most important.
The most recent event is the most important. Isn't that what you said?
What? I was saying recency. I'm encompassing both. I'm saying the First Strike main event and JBL are the most recent and most important.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that the scale of the qualifiers made them also large events. Like this wasn't some piddly run-up qualifier. They were the only tournaments happening across the month of October and November.
Sure.
It's what the teams were aiming for. It's what they were trying and prepping for. The results there were important to be able to get you through. And I feel like we're not remembering how poor T1 were during
I
some
remember.
of those
T1
No,
qualifiers.
no. That's what I'm saying. It's just an opposite trajectory. The first, I mean,
It
if you
is,
look
yeah.
at the first qualifier, T1 are several spots below Envy.
Yeah,
More than several,
maybe more.
probably.
T1 were
And also, if we
horrific.
even look pre-qualifier too, Envy was clearly the better team than T1.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you include
So-
Pop Flash into this, Envy easily wins, right?
Yeah,
because they actually came
absolutely.
second in another major tournament and
But
beat some good teams
We've
on the way.
already
But
said we've already laid the
we're not
foundation of that.
taking that.
Exactly. We're not really considering ignition as much. And the crux of this entire argument that I put forward comes down to how much do you weigh, I guess, just the concept of the main event, like as a tournament, right? How much do you weigh that as a tournament, how much it means to these teams, how much their performance in that. And they didn't even go further than Envy in that main event, but they played against 100 Thieves in the round of 1. And how much weight do you place onto that? The fact that they played them incredibly close.
To me, though, the problem with putting T1 at fourth is they haven't really beaten decent teams. Like, they've looked, okay, you can say they had like 13, 10 games against 100 Thieves or something, but apart from Cloud9, who boomed themselves with like Mitch on Phoenix and stuff during that game against T1, like that was not a good level of performance from Cloud9. Apart from that, the teams that they've beaten are like Immortals, Dignitas, Gen.G. During that same time period, they've lost to FaZe, Complexity, plus the normal top teams of 100 Thieves, Sentinels, Envy. Like, what you're saying about T1 is the eye test. Is that they're on an upwards trajectory and they looked better than Envy at the end. The results on paper, they haven't actually beaten better teams than Envy towards the end. They haven't got deeper in tournaments than Envy.
I'm just, part of it as well is I think if you, in that main event, or even now, if T1 and Envy were playing a serious match, I would bet on T1 winning right now. And I also think that heading into next year, I'm more confident in T1, actually.
Honestly, I don't even. They got me. That's fair. I agree. T1 fourth over MV. I actually agree with that. I agree. Yeah, T1 over me. They got me. Yeah.
This is madness, but
I think it's
so
mega
close. I think. We could put Envy there, and I'm fine with it as well. But I think that T1 would just beat them right now. And moving forward, I think T1 still have so much room to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, this doesn't affect the tier list of the past 3 months, but as a separate statement, I think T1 have a lot of room to grow coming into next year. I think that they could really actually perform well.
The reason I don't mind this power rankings as well is it reminds me of a child when you buy shoes and your mum's like, make sure they have some growing room, make sure they've got a little bit of room in the front to grow. And it's like, okay, we've built a power rankings here kind of for the future as well. Okay, it's not 100% for the future, but it has the added bonus of having a bit of growing room for T1 so that they can really grow into their place as the 4th best team in North America. You can wiggle your toes a bit.
And this is once again not a huge gap. Like, Envy could turn it around and suddenly take that spot back pretty easily, you know? They could challenge potentially TSM for 3rd even if they start looking good again. But I think that's fine.
I think Envy and T1 would both struggle to win a tournament.
Oh, yeah.
At the moment. Like, I can't really see either of them getting through any of the top 3 teams to win a tournament.
But what I've seen from Envy, I would
be a wonderful bracket.
I would lean towards Envy comparatively over T1 based off other results that we've seen to make it further.
I can't see T1 winning a tournament. I could maybe see Envy if the bracket was set up right and they finally hit something. I don't know.
I think T1 have a better chance of winning a tournament.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. I don't think T1 are the type of team I don't think they're going to like flop when it's a tough matchup. Like, I don't think that they're just going to absolutely turn off like how we saw. And I mean, that honestly, that Envy main event game has really left a bad taste in my mouth with the team and their hopes kind of to some extent moving forward. Because that was just disappointing because Envy did look really good up until the main event, but
yeah. And then they got their dicks flattened by Dicey Sage and JBL. Just 13-0.
But I would agree that
Exactly.
T1 looks like the currently better team, but I feel like Envy structure and where they're at, like I feel like they have the potential to be better, but T1 right now for sure the better team. I think Wyatt has gotten me. He has converted me. He's hijacked my brain like those little mushroom spores against the insects, and that's it. He's got me.
That's it. We're all settled.
Well, now we come to the idea of Cloud9 though, because Cloud9 are a weird one. They're
we can't rank Cloud9.
Exactly, that's the thing. I don't even know whether you can rank them.
They don't have a roster, and if it is the Leaf roster, we have like two or three BO1 losses to go on.
We also have negative opinions. I think,
no, I'm meaning their previous roster though. The prior roster with Shinobi, where did that end? Like what?
I would have put them below TSM. I would have put them at like potentially. I would have potentially put them below. They were not top 3 when they ended.
Where do you rank a team that looks incredible and then flops so spectacularly?
I would put them in 6th.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I don't think, despite them losing to Renegades, who made the main event, I'm not going to put Renegades higher than Cloud9 right now. And then, who else even is there reasonably? I mean, who else do we have on this list? I know we had like Gen.G, Dig. We're not putting them there. Immortals, maybe. I think you could argue putting Immortals over Cloud9.
Yeah.
But I think you could argue putting Cloud9 above Immortals.
Immortals
made the main event.
Icebox game to this day haunts me. The Immortals Icebox game haunts me.
I think again though there's some crazy recency bias there, because when you look at their performance across the qualifiers, they beat Envy, TSM, 100 Thieves. Cloud9 was winning against the best teams in the region.
I remember.
It's just with Cloud9, they looked like they were playing on an excellent level, and then they had a dramatic flop, which is a weird thing to rank, because when it mattered the most, they utterly flopped. Which is why I don't think there is even an accurate place to rank this team.
Yeah, we just say they could have. They're sort of like a phantom molecule orbiting around the top 5 that could have entered at one point, but they have exited. They've escaped velocity out of the top 5. Goodbye.
Yeah,
it's the Heisenberg principle. We tried to assess where they were in the rankings, and so they had to change their roster just to escape it even further. There's no way of pinning them down.
Oh my god.
All right, are we going to do the world?
I don't think we should.
Want to do the world next week?
Yeah, you want to say world ranking? We're going to be here for like an hour and a half more.
Yeah, you want to save it for next week?
We should probably do like a 2020 like overarching wrap up thing. Like one of those.
Sure.
All of our topics will look like one of those Twitter polls. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I can already see the title of this video. It's gonna fucking bang.
Top players of 2020, top teams of 2020, the top 10 currently at the end of 2020. Yeah, I think we should do that next episode and have like a big recap of the year.
A little wrap up show, huh?
Yeah, we've gone a while so far with this episode, and we are halfway through. These next topics I think are going to be pretty rapid, like in terms of our takes on it. Are we going to talk
about the new agent again?
We're not going to talk about the new agent again. So we're gonna skip over the world power rankings. I think Cloud9, honestly, I wouldn't even put in, because I know people are going to take screenshots of this and say, "Here's what Plat chat think the top 5 of that they are." I mean, okay, I think that's fine. That's fine. Let's talk about some European news. We've left it to last because we've recognized our audience. Existence to join Ninjas in Pajamas. This is
what a huge move.
This is the rumor.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I think this is a rumor, right?
I like it.
No, it's not. It's not so much a rumor. It's a report from a guy called Nell, who, as far as I'm aware, has been correct on everything he's reported in CS and
never been wrong.
But technically, it's a rumor, but it's a report by someone who's got 100% accuracy when it comes to the reports. So pretty much almost confirmed. This is a name I haven't seen in years, because when I used to follow CS, he was very relevant at the time. He was playing on. Also, by the way, it's probably a name you haven't seen in years either, because he doesn't use the name Existence when he actually plays in Valorant. He uses the name Akuho Sihei or something, which means there is no mercy
in some
Okay.
language. I can't even remember what language it is.
God, that's
but whenever
cool.
you see Existence playing the server, you can't tell it's even him because he doesn't even use his normal alias.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm interested.
Did they
in this move.
specify it's just
like
a
it.
player, right? Because Existence was finished their CS career as a coach. So
yeah, but he's been playing though.
he's been playing in
he's been
Valorant,
playing,
yeah.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
For the past year, I believe, or a short amount of
Because I
time.
know they
on, like,
still
a-
have
he's been
Emo as
playing
their
since the
coach.
beginning,
So
like a
I was
mixed
just
puck
making
team.
sure.
I can't. What was the team? What was the team he was just on in
It's like-
First Strike? What my
It's
brain
called like
isn't working.
CS something. It's called CS in the name,
Who?
I think.
Existence?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Existence was just on
from CS?
Institute,
yeah,
wasn't he?
yeah. I couldn't think of the name. Yeah,
Oh.
all I could remember was the school.
No, wait,
bus
no, I
logo.
don't think he was on. Yeah, maybe he was on Institute. Yeah, I'm
Well,
losing
we
my
are
mind. Yeah, he
lost in
was.
the
He was on
sauce.
Institute.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Look.
Okay.
I'm interested in this move. I know
Yeah.
the NIP roster is just. I mean, NIP has just been chaotic since the beginning, but I think this is pretty interesting. I like the idea of Existence, the in-game leader coming into NIP, adding a little
So that's
structure.
a JD in Existence.
JD. I mean, JD is really good. So I don't
Yeah.
know. This roster could work. Will it exist for more than 2 weeks before they change something again? I don't know. Probably, but I'd like to maybe see them stick with something. I think this
I don't
roster could be good.
understand- Yeah, I don't really know what roles they're going to run with. There's like 3 players on this roster that have played Omen before, and there's all of their players now have just played a huge amount of roles. So I don't really get what they're going to go for, but finding the right roles for these players is the key to making this team work. And then also sticking with it and trying to find like a style for your team. They have changed pieces and changed roles so many times in IP that what they desperately need is just some stability.
The
They don't have an
NRG.
all-star roster. You need the stability to get the teamwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting change. And like my opinion is you're never too old to play Valorant. You know, you can always train your mind, retrain your mind. People say that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't think that's actually true. I feel like your potential as a Valorant player doesn't come from like what game you came from, but actually just comes from your willingness to learn a new game and your willingness to I think your enjoyment of the game as well. There's probably a lot of players that came
Absolutely.
from games that were like, oh, I'll make a quick buck in Valorant, and they've shot the bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, wish him the best. This is
To be clear though as well, the important thing about this team is who they have playing each role. Existence and Korea have only ever
Yes,
played
yep,
Smoke
yep,
since
Josh.
they started the game.
you said.
Yeah, but
We get it.
yeah, okay. I give up.
No, I think that's okay. I didn't mean to shut you down like that. Okay, do you want to look?
But I feel like that's a
packet?
constant paradigm for a lot of bad teams, though, is that like or teams that are struggling, not bad teams, but teams that are struggling, is that they simply don't have a structure in place. They don't
Yeah,
know what agents anyone is playing.
Here's a question.
Right,
for
but
you.
this
Do you
one,
think-
the reason that I say this more so than any other normal team is that Existence, even when he was on CS, wasn't known as a fragger. He was the brain IGL, right? He was actually like almost the meme of the low fragging IGL. I don't think he
Yeah.
was actually that bad, but he was, that has been his role within other teams in CS. That's his history. So you're not going to transition him into more of a fragging role. Or at least it would be unlikely that you do that. The other guy that you've got on Smokes is Korea, who invented all of the weird Omen plays that you see so often in European Omen gameplay, but his actual level of rifling is not enormous. Like, he's not a guy that you want to transition over to duelist either. So this team has some issues right from the signing of Existence to figure out. It's not something where there's a natural fit. There is a problem right from the beginning of signing this player that you need to figure out quickly and establish roles for. Otherwise, you've got a long-standing issue on the team.
The roles question comes up with a lot of teams that are being formed in Valorant. And what do you guys think? What do you guys think about this? This is more like an experiment of the mind. Okay, I want you all to just expand your minds real quick while you think about this.
Yeah.
But like the fact that there's no real set meta in Valorant for a long period of time compared to a game like Overwatch or like a game like League of Legends where you have to find positions that you play in. Do you think this is quite damaging for the game's growth on the competitive side of things, because like teams can't really necessarily find like, oh, we need this particular player who plays this particular role, but they haven't been playing it. They've been playing whatever the team they're on needs at the time. You can't really see specialists almost. It's like almost below the tier 1 level, there's not really room to specialize. You kind of have to be flexible.
I think it just evolves more over time. That happens with probably every game. It's gonna solidify into something. At some point, it won't necessarily be based off of your duelist or sentinel, but it'll be based off. There'll be probably your roles will be like, these guys are playing. You'll have one guy that plays these agents, one guy that plays these agents, and so on and so forth. And you'll sort of just add them to the pool it goes on. Because I think that's just naturally how a game works. When you have categories of characters that are played and their roles aren't always exactly the same, there's going to be like different specialties, and sometimes like it might not even be nearly as specialized as games like League or Overwatch, but there will still be probably like tint coverings of like agents that are played, I imagine, for players.
It's a little full experiment. We don't have to dwell on it long. I'm just I just want to throw it out there. Maybe you guys can think about it. Write a comment on what you think. Maybe a little 400-word essay, and
Sure.
the best one will pin.
Yeah.
Huh? How about that?
I'll send it in. I'll send it into the Bren's writing contest.
Absolutely. You don't win anything, but that's. I was just gonna say the next topic.
Yeah, do it.
The rumor, dimasick, going to FPX is the rumor. That's the word on the street. Did a bit of sniffing around.
Yeah,
pulled this one out.
Discovered this one.
Yeah, I laid a lot of the groundwork with this one.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty big.
This is an interesting one. dimasick has been really good in the teams that he's been playing in. He's been a standout player within the CIS teams that he was playing in, and he's actually, I didn't even realize he's from Kazakhstan. I thought he was is Kazakhstan CIS? I don't even know what region.
I think it's technically Kazakhstan is in the CIS like area because it's sort of like that it's like that Soviet post-Soviet bloc.
Yeah, it's one of the former Soviet states.
So yeah.
But in terms of the region, I don't know where. I mean, I guess you could get away with CIS. Yeah.
I think it would be CIS. Geographically, I would say. I mean, you could make the argument for like somewhere like it's maybe more eastern or even southern, but like I would say it's like.
I feel like the ping would be horrible trying to play in Southeast Asia though, or like because they would be playing in Southeast Asia, I think, in terms of the region. Where does India play as a region?
Wait, what are you guys talking about? Why would they be playing in India?
Where does India play as a region in Valorant if you're an Indian team? What region do you participate in?
I don't have any idea. Do they have Indian servers?
I would imagine you would have Indian servers, or at least
I don't know if they do.
I don't think they do, though. No, I don't think so. I remember we looked this up a while back. The Indian teams were playing in I don't know, the Middle Eastern servers or something like that.
Right.
What
topic? What does this have to do with dimasick?
Well, I'm trying to think.
I am drenched in the sauce.
Because you just said he's from Kazakhstan, right? And Kazakhstan is just
not
north.
Really, that close to India at all.
It's north of India, and it's
in the same way that Russia is north of India.
I mean, look at the map, Josh.
It's pretty far away. India and Kazakhstan are pretty far away.
Let's take a look at the geographical map. Let's pull it up. I need to see this with my own 2 eyes. Because in my mind, I've got you've got India and then northwest is Kazakhstan. But how northwest?
Yeah, a long way northwest. A really long way. Like
it's really not too close.
There's the whole of China between India and Kazakhstan. Like Kazakhstan is
cartographers.
Kazakhstan is on the same kind of what is the one that goes that way? Is that latitude?
Wait,
you are
I
correct.
don't remember. Is that latitude? I think.
Wait, no, wait.
Yeah, because long. I don't know.
What are you talking about? Can we see?
I think
want to play some GeoGuessr?
Okay,
it's on the same. It's on the same height though. If you think in
India
as like Ukraine and Austria, it's not. It's not that.
Yeah, that's pretty
out.
far away. There's no way in hell they'd be playing in Southeast Asia. I mean, where do they go? I guess they play in the Middle East.
No, I'm telling. Sorry, why is this even a discussion? He's been playing on CIS teams.
Yeah,
he's playing on CIS teams. He's not playing in Middle Eastern teams.
But where would be the best ping?
to Kazakhstan if they had a server there.
No, I think it would be. Anyway, we don't have to dwell on this. I mean, it's
late. This is the longest episode of any podcast we've ever done.
Dude, sometimes we're just like rambling into the.
Christ, man.
Dimasick is here to replacing Meadow.
Hold on.
Replacing Meadow.
Last night, Wyatt said, yesterday, Wyatt said 2 p.m. We're going to need to put our brains together to get a good topic list this week. Not a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
So
instead
we'll discuss how far Kazakhstan is away.
And now we're 2.5 hours in discussing the logistics of where Kazakhstan would play. But that's besides the point. What were we talking about?
Dimasick, replacing Meadow.
We haven't even talked about him, man. So dimasick is a player that was playing on a bunch of like mixed rosters not early on, but like a decent way into the scene. I want to say in like July, August kind of time. He was playing on mixed rosters like Prodigy and Worst Players, and he was doing well. Yeah, those are the games where he was playing against like 2G4L and Need More DM and stuff like that. And he looked strong there, where he was playing the Cypher. He was having pretty good performances, but they were mixed rosters and never really went anywhere in that sense. And then he started playing for CIS teams, and he actually played a bunch of duelist stuff, and he looked pretty good there. He just looks like a good all-round player. And he could be a much more active addition to FPX, whilst also fitting into the CIS kind of style, maybe that Angel and Xiao want to develop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have no argument. Honestly, I haven't seen very much footage of him because like
I got
all
no
European
thoughts.
players, it's like, there's just no footage to watch.
Not a single
So, but he
thought
looks good on paper.
He is very skilled.
Speedrun time.
Yeah.
Such pretty eyes. Not a single thought behind them. Not a single thought. Nolpenki actually is folded as a team, which is quite unfortunate. But this is almost the inevitability of EU. Sorry if that wasn't clear. We're on the next topic. That wasn't really a throw. I just kind of was continuing a sentence. This is inevitable, I feel like, with just EU as a region. The constant churning. Avast, was it you that came up with the analogy of like the crust of the earth?
Yes,
and, like,
I was. That was me. I took my geology classes.
The molten earth melting and fluxing, and like you've got the tier 1 crust, but then the molten magma, which is EU tier 2 Valorant, and that kind of breaking into tier 1, constantly churning away.
That's the mantle, by the way. Refer to it as the mantle.
Sorry, the mantle, yeah. Constantly churning away, and that is what's happened here. Nolpenki, they have fallen to the forces of entropy within the Earth's core, and are going to be evaporated.
Yeah. Sort of an inevitability with the first strike being over as well.
Yeah.
And the struggles of getting a full team signed, especially in EU. It doesn't really happen, does it?
But this is also, when this happens in Europe, it's almost a fun thing for the scene a lot of the time, because these people then become free agents that others can pick apart. The vultures will be at the corpse of Nolpenki. And in fact, this is probably the reason that they disbanded. A lot of the time, the reason that these kind of teams disband is because players get picked up for bigger orgs. Yeah. It's not that the players themselves just decide, oh, well, we didn't achieve enough in first strike. It's that one of their players has been signed and they decide, oh, well, it's not really worth rebuilding. We might as well all try and find individual homes. I'm wondering whether G2 is looking at Zeke. That's a rumor that's been going around the internet. And it would allow Ardis to transition into Breach or Duelist for them. And Zeke would probably pick up the Sova because it's what he plays most of. Zeke was also IGLing for Nolpenki, and they've been looking for an IGL. The reason that doesn't really fit to me is that the way that Nolpenki played is like an NA team. There was very little structure. It was a lot of just pushing and constant aggression and trying to hit shots. So I don't really know how good Zeke is at IGLing. I don't think we really saw the full extent of it. It wasn't like it was a fantastic CV of a really well-structured, well-IGL team. But maybe he would be good with better, smarter components. It's really hard to know. But in terms of being a player that fits, a player who is mega highly skilled, because Zeke is, his skill is insane. Plus, then can IGL? In theory, it kind of fits G2.
Yeah. Again, zero thoughts really. I mean, I just what's got you smiling, Avast?
I just like Bren's saying, it also just sounds like a lateral move, like Josh was talking about. It sounds like a lateral move. Like, it just sounds like if we're just passing around dudes that can sort of talk with their mouth and shoot real good, then are we making any upgrades? Are we making, is this a changing the paradigm of the team? Like, I don't know. It might, but like, I'm not sure. Like, the more I look at it at times, the more we'll see as they evolve. It's still too early to see just yet, but I fear G2 becomes the Overwatch envious of our Valorant time. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Hot take alert.
That's
fiery take alert.
That's a dystopian future, is what you just put forward.
That's coming from the Envy representative as well.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I got hired. They were like, hey, you should talk us real good. Want to work? Where else? I was like, yeah. So like, there we go.
Yeah. Well, how do the roles work with this team? That's what I want to know. If they do bring in Zeke, right?
Oh, if they brought in Zeke?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Artis would then get pushed out of his position probably, because it makes sense for your IGL to play this over, right? Rather than trying to slot him into... Well, unless Zeke wanted to try and pick up Breach, but that doesn't really make too much sense, in my opinion. I think
Does it not?
with Artis being well, to me, because Artis is such a phenomenal Jett and duelist anyway, plus he's been able to play the Breach to a high level in the, 2 maps that we saw him playing Breach. I think Artis is the natural guy you would want to shift over to another role. Huh?
Artis played Breach like in beta.
Yeah, he did actually. Played a couple of it. Yeah. I don't think he played that much of it though, did he?
No,
I thought he was playing mostly like Brim and Jett.
I had to scour I was in the fucking archives when I was making my Liquid video, looking at Fish 123, and I found some ancient footage of Artis on Breach when it ice paper hands.
Yes.
But it comes down to the roles. Josh's favorite topic for me comes down to the roles and how they wiggle that around as well.
Yeah.
But who knows? You too. Maybe picking them up. But yeah, Nolpenki, a lot of talent on the free market.
Yeah.
A lot of talent on the free market.
I hope someone in EU gets paid.
In Korea.
At some point.
In Korea, we've got news. News from the East, because T1 have dropped their Korean roster, so they're going to be following Cloud9's suit here. This kind of makes sense, honestly.
Yeah.
Just on the basis that I felt like some of these orgs, the traditional orgs, they've seen the success of certain esports in Korea as a region, but unfortunately what we always come back to is the kind of failings, the mismanagement almost of Valorant as a game in Korea have really stifled it as an esports to pop off. I mean, the most apt comparison is looking at surrounding regions. Even countries like Japan, which typically don't have a big PC gaming audience, have taken to Valorant like what's the saying? Like
flies
water
on
to a sponge. There you go.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we also talked about it last week. Like you can't have 2 teams with the different regions, same org. You can't have that. Reason. So they had to part ways with the Korean team, which makes sense because the NA viewership is good in the NA team. They have big names, etc. So it makes sense to hold on to that one. Hopefully someone else signs them.
Mitch made a point on the Valoranting podcast that it's kind of weird that T1 as an organization have so much legacy within Korea, and it's actually their Korean roster that's ended up being dropped here as well as the org starts to transition more and more into spending in North America and getting bigger and bigger over here. It's it's kind of a weird transition, and it also I think speaks to the. Yes, since
the Comcast acquisition, it's just steadily been slowly more moving over towards North America.
Yeah, and I think it speaks, both this move and Cloud9's move, to the gamble of like whether or not Korea was going to be the dominant region in this game. And it just doesn't seem like there's enough popularity to be able to support that. Like the Korean teams are really good. I think next week, if we do a world power rankings, I would be mauling if Vision Strikers is not somewhere in the top 10, especially after watching them, their most recent performances. They absolutely are a top 10 team. But is Korea going to be the dominant region in this game? There just don't seem to be enough players playing for that to be the case.
Korea has to be interested in your esport for it to like. They got so much other stuff going on. They got PUBG Mobile. They got League.
They actually do have PUBG Mobile.
They do PUBG. They fucking go bonkers over PUBG Mobile.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. I think
what's that other game that's like really big? It's like their proprietary game. Or am I thinking of China, where they have like this one really popular like shooter game that only exists in that region, and they like only play it there. Crossfire and Sudden Attack, both of them. Yeah. Like, I don't know if that's Korea or China, though, honestly.
I think both of those are Korean.
Okay,
but I think they may play them in China as well. I'm not sure.
Either way, they have something they already got there, and they look at this and like, holy fuck, my PC bong is exploding. My PC bang is exploding from my fucking Valorant anti-cheat taking, and so it's just like,
is this Crossfire?
This is it here.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is it. What is this Crossfire Cup?
Yes.
Dude, I mean, this is kind of fluid, though. Like, the movement's, like, fast-paced, but it's, like, presumably got the same kind of shooting style. I mean, it's almost... Maybe I've been watching too much Valorant, but it seems like a faster CS.
That pop up and shit. Like, that's what they need to really get... We need to get some some crazy graphics popping up. We need just crazy sounds. It needs to be like a gacha game. Ooh. And it just, like, that's when you do it. That's how it goes big.
Yeah.
Look at the 3-frame animations on the guns and stuff.
It's like, it's 1.6.
Yeah. It has, a similar kind of art style to it, doesn't it? It looks like the aiming is pretty similar too.
But I mean, I think that's going to be an issue though with Korea moving forward, is that like, it's not that Riot doesn't have a hold there. It's just more the fact that like with FPS games, I think you kind of just have to hit like the crackhead FPS market for Korea. And I feel like Valorant could be that market, but like when you look at this gameplay, is Valorant that market? Like, because like it makes sense for games like Overwatch, because Overwatch is like a very distinct style of FPS.
Yeah,
that's like, but like, is Valorant gonna be?
I also feel that the Overwatch was, and still is honestly as well. As much as people bring up the PC bong numbers and say like, well, Overwatch is in so and so, I think it's still in the top 10 since its introduction of the game, which is. It's good. I mean, the Overwatch commentators picking up Overwatch, cool. But
I mean, it's higher than top 10. Valorant was like 9th, 10th recently.
Yeah,
Overwatch I think has been top 5 in PC Bong since its release.
Yeah, I think League of Legends is always number 1. Maybe Overwatch overtook it for a short while, but those rankings are important because it gives you an indication of like what the trends are in the country and what people are playing. But I think Overwatch was just an incredibly attractive game because it was the mix of like the MOBA elements, the FPS elements, and also fun characters that people could get behind, right? The characters are a huge part of that. And that's the one thing Valorant had going for it, actually, as this new inception into the tactical shooter market. But yeah, couldn't quite grasp it. And I mean, it's a bit of a shame because of the PC Bong situation where they couldn't work out a solution with the Vanguard. Maybe they're still working on it, but I almost feel like
they will still work on it. Riot are not going to give up on Korea because it's been such an enormous region for them when it comes to League of Legends. Like they would be fools to not continue to work in that area. Plus, they haven't even launched in China yet. Officially, there's Chinese teams which I've listed a bunch of VODs out. Some of the Chinese teams have actually been performing pretty well, but when they've played against other Korean teams recently, or not that recently, a couple of months ago. But the game has yet to really. They could still get going in Asia. I think.
It's not done, but it's not done yet for sure.
And I mean, it already is. It already has got going in some parts of Asia, but I mean, specifically Korea and China, which are massive markets for League of Legends. I think it could still, like, you can't call that it's a failure already.
No.
Maybe in Korea.
No, I mean, I
have to do a lot of work. But I think
it's a lot of work, and it's whether or not they want them. Because I don't know. I think they'd have to give up essentially special circumstances to Korea, where they would have to kind of loosen up some of the restrictions of Vanguard. And is that something that they'd want to cross? Is that a line they'd want to cross?
I will be very disappointed if it doesn't take off in Korea in particular, simply because like a lot of these old, especially like the EU CS guys, don't know what it's like when the Koreans enter the scene and just pound you on the regular, and you're like, what's happened? Like, and they just don't know. They just don't realize it. Everyone,
they're
we
not
had the
familiar
exact
with it.
same conversation like 5 years ago. Or 5 years ago in Overwatch, and then they came back with a vengeance. And they fucking kimchi clapped cheeks left and right.
If Korea actually does get big into Valorant, they will be the dominant region again. I mean, you can talk all you like about them having, Europe and NA having more CS experience or whatever. But considering Vision Strikers are already, probably a top 5 team in the world at this point, when they are just using kind of the remnants of their old CS rosters that didn't even do anything. But the fact that they're tactically so far ahead of all the other teams in the world, if you build out that pool so that you now have all of Korea to choose from, there are nutty aimers across the whole of Korea. It's a numbers game at that point. They're going to have the tactics and the strategy, plus all of the aimers to be able to choose from, and they're going to be wildly good. Are they going to dominate in the same way they do in Overwatch? Maybe not, but they're still going to be outrageously good.
I remember the overarching opinions, which was 2016. I remember the doubters. Being like, no, there's no way Korea's going to be a big region in the game, and it only took them a year. Only took 1 year. Yep, only.
But that's only if they actually. That's only if they actually have a lot of people playing, because there's only so much you can do if there aren't that many people to actually choose from.
The player base. Next topic, we've got some Brazilian news. This is beautiful. I like this. Xand and QCK. I don't know if there's like a particular pronunciation, but they're looking to form a Brazilian superstar team, superstar team after the B4 dissolve, the liquidation of that team. This is quite exciting. When I looked at this news, I almost wish we were at the point where we could see almost multinational rosters, because I can think of so many teams that would be dying for players as capable of Xand and QCK in NA or, I mean, Europe, but mainly NA is what I'm thinking of, really. Like teams like Immortals, like, God almighty, can you remember? Can you think of Xand on Immortals? Like, God almighty. I mean, it's not going to happen for a long time yet. I feel like it's still going to be confined to the regions for obvious reasons. But this is exciting, honestly. I think this is 2 big players in the Brazilian team looking to try and form. They kind of overlap in roles, which is weird, but yeah.
Yeah, they don't have to as well, though, because Shandy has played a bunch of like Raze stuff as well. So if they wanted to run Raze Jett and just have a QCK on the Jett,
how did you pronounce his name?
Shandy is apparently how you're supposed.
That's how you're supposed to say it, Shandy.
Yeah. That's how you're supposed to say it. Also, all of the Brazilian names, we've been saying them all wrong, like every single one. I was doing a VOD review of some Brazilian games, and there was a couple of Brazilian not players, but viewers in my chat, and they were trying to guide me on the pronunciation. And I shit you not, every single one I was doing incorrectly. Every single one.
Pronunciation is hard. Portuguese is hard to pronounce.
It is.
Speaker, because it's so different than even like Spanish, even like in terms of like some of the pronunciations. It's hard.
Interesting.
And the guy is called John. That is correct.
I know how to pronounce that name. Yeah, I'm excited for this though. Brazil as a region has just been looking like they're on the up and up and up, and I feel like this is what we were saying with the same with Nolpenki kind of like dissolving. This is the what's happening across the world, across the pond.
I will say that this news, I believe, is from like some Google translated Brazilian tweets. So it's possible that we've got a bit of the wrong end of the stick of this scenario or something like that. There might be Brazilian fans that correct us on the nuances of what's actually happening over there. But as far as I'm aware, this is what's actually going on.
Brazilian insider.
Exactly. Yeah, we actually do. I'll tell you what. Didn't Strong, Joe Edwards, the guy that we had on the show earlier, I think he said that he spoke Portuguese and was helping a couple of the Brazilian teams out with some coaching. So actually, he might know what's going on. I always forget to talk to him about that stuff.
Good point. Are you guys ready to move on? I feel like the energy is
pretty much
waning.
at the end of the episode almost. So
we are almost at the end of the episode. We got one last topic. It's 12:42 p.m. where we are while we're recording. You ready?
Oh, it's this
time. It's Wyatt's weekly award.
Oh, this topic.
So run the tape.
Sure.
Run the tape.
It's a new trophy. It's a new trophy.
What the fuck? Where are you getting these trophies from?
Have you guaranteed? Is this baked in? Is this like in the control? We're doing a new skit every time for Wyatt Weekly Award. And a new trophy?
I don't know.
Love it.
When the fuck? Okay, I don't know when they do this. We live in the same house. Every now and then I see the green screen put up here. Every now and then I'll come downstairs and the green screen, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. They're recording something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Have you got your own engraving business on the side? Is this so that people get in touch with you?
Yeah, they are all engraved. I mean,
they place must know you by name now after all these.
Is that? I mean,
listen, Plat Chat's doing well.
this is solid marble.
Listen, Plat Chat's doing well. This week, Wyatt's Weekly Award, the Little League Trophy, going to one individual from one of my favorite teams, Gen.G, and it's going to be going to Hwin. And the reason being, I think it's about time we start giving Hwin a bit more credit. I think it's about time we put Hwin a little bit higher up in the rankings, because I feel like whenever you have these conversations about top duelists or top Jets, he's kind of just outside of that framework. He doesn't really get put into that conversation, and I think he's earned a place in that conversation over the past couple months. I mean, throughout First Strike, I think that the duo of him and GMD has really been the star element, the major fragging power of this roster. But it's not only his entrying on attack, which is incredibly good and is one of the driving forces of Gen.G succeeding on attack, but also his ability to, I think, comfortably switch between the AWP and the rifle, which is something not a lot of other Jets have been able to accomplish post the AWP nerf. He still gets a lot of value out of it, and I don't think he overuses it either. I think he's found a really nice balance there. I think he's one of the best with the Jett utility. I think he kind of gets underrated on that front. He actually gets unreal value out of all the Jett abilities. I think he has incredible movement. I really think he's like the full package right now as a Jett player. And I think that it's about time that he kind of enters that upper echelon conversation, because I think he's been the real star player of Gen.G for the past couple months now. And obviously, we're winning the Knights tournament and pounding.
Just giggling over the trophy.
Yeah. I like this one a lot.
I agree.
I like this trophy a lot. It's the silhouette of it. We've all gotten this one as a 5-year-old kid winning the Little League.
The British people most definitely have not, I don't think. I don't think the British people have.
I don't know if you can see this, but the arms, it's just one arm. One big, wide arm.
Yeah.
What do you mean it's one arm?
Conjoined.
There's...
So like...
they're conjoined.
Like
they're kind of joined together.
There's like a gap in between the arms. You see this? It's just conjoined.
Yeah, there's not
one giant arm.
It's not hollow here.
It's not hollow.
Bit of manufacturing error.
But it's lovely. And I'm just thinking of our new set that we're going to be teasing. It's going to be pretty soon. It's in the next couple of weeks. Our new set, our new location. And I'm just thinking of all the lovely trophies we're going to have behind it. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Very good. Very good.
You know, if you'd moved to a different area, you could have gone and moved to, there's a city in Texas called Trophy Club, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they make trophies there?
I can't remember exactly what I don't know what the name came from, honestly. I'm not sure.
If you guys move away from where you currently live to a new location, this trophy shop is going to die. You must be the only people supporting it with revenue. It's going to collapse.
I don't think so. I feel like I feel like here in America, all the little people have been dying to go do Little League games still. So I honestly I think that they're going strong probably.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's beautiful. Honestly, it's beautiful. I think this is a lovely little wrap to the episode. Honestly, what's our runtime, Kurt?
Let's see, 2 hours and 47 minutes.
Wow, that is long.
Yep.
This is the longest episode we've done, right?
We can talk about any topic for a long time. No, we're never an issue of what the topics are. I feel like we can just stretch it out.
I mean, this is crazy.
I want to talk about Dignitas.
Can I plug the Christmas?
We didn't even talk about Dig at any point.
No, we didn't.
Did we? Oh no.
No, we didn't.
Let's.
Dude, Macca is so good though.
How many of you guys made it to the end of the episode? Really? Like, this is the longest episode we've ever done.
A lot of people probably did.
You made it. What do they have to comment? People have to leave a comment.
I want to tease something. Well,
Oh,
so
do you?
if you made it to the end of the episode, firstly, write hi, and then write that you enjoyed your stay.
Where's he
He's
going?
going off speaking when he
going?
doesn't have a microphone. He said he wants to tease something.
I know. But I got something on the horizon. Planning a little charity Christmas stream soon. Probably be on my channel.
Is that
That's
a Santa Claus outfit?
It's a Santa Claus outfit. We got some elf outfits as well. It's a little teaser.
God, are you going to dress Jack up as an elf?
Yeah.
We're gonna dress somebody up as an elf. Yeah, we're gonna dress somebody up as an elf. Don't you worry. Yeah,
That's fantastic.
Did that pick up though?
Actually,
To leave, or what did you say that wasn't said? What did he leave off at earlier, Josh? Was it to leave the comment?
what does he leave in the
Leave a
comment?
comment saying, "Hi, I enjoyed my stay."
Wasn't that last week though?
Oh yeah,
I
think
can't
it
remember
was.
what last
Yo,
week
we're gonna get
was.
flagged for botting our YouTube
Something,
comments.
I
If
don't
we're
know.
doing the
Yeah.
same comments.
Okay, don't write that. Write.
That was a decoy.
Write the year at which you won your little league tournament. And leave it off as
Good
that.
idea. Good idea.
See ya.